All right. Not today, not today. All right. Good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us today. It's a lovely Monday evening. Hope you had a wonderful weekend. How's everybody doing? Ẹkáàbọ, Olóyè of South London. Ẹkáàbọ, Oṣedadan. Good evening, everybody. Good to be back and good to see you again. Thank you very much for the 6.6k likes here on TikTok. I really do appreciate it. But please don't stop our tapping. Kindly tap and share. We're going to have a great time today. But like I said last week, I'm trying to make sure that we're able to fit everything we're doing between once we get here and 8 p.m. I might even finish earlier today because there's a little emergency. Well, there was an emergency that requires my attention later this evening. But it's good to be here. All right, let me just be sure that we're all watching and we're good. And then we can get started. Did you guys enjoy the music? I thought it was good. It was fun. All right. So we're going to get to the news now, and then the topic. Today we're discussing the news, of course, Azikiwe and Igbo Supremacy. I'll give you my introduction when we get to the topic, but let's start with the news. We all know about what happened last week. We talked about it here on Friday. The loss of Chimamanda's son, who was a twin. Please play and Zima next time. You want to watch a movie? You want to have the feeling of watching a movie? I'll note it so I can play it because you asked for it. All right. So thank you very much for being here. So we're going to start with the news. So on Friday last week, here when we talked about the sad event of Chimamanda's son's passing, a young boy, not up to 2 years old, and like we said, was a devastating loss. It's a terrible event and terrible news to the family. But we didn't get the full gist the last time we talked about it. We just talked about the fact that the son died, which is bad. And to be honest, I don't like talking about, I don't like bad news, right? And I also definitely, so I imagine what it's going to feel like to the person who actually lost her own son and the husband as well. It must have been terrible. But more details were released over the weekend, and I thought we should just revisit that before we get into other things, as we pray for God to console Chimamanda and her husband. So this is from Arise News. A number of things I want to talk about, so let's start with Arise News. Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, who recently lost her 21-month-old son, has released a statement detailing the circumstances surrounding his death. Arise News reached out to Adichie's media team, who confirmed that she did not author the statement. According to our representatives, the message was originally sent privately to family members and a few close friends. Quote, her son will be alive today if not for an incident at Ireke Hospital on January 6th. We were in Lagos for Christmas. Nkanu had what we first thought was just a cold, but soon turned into a very serious infection and he was admitted to Atlantis Hospital. He was to travel to the US the next day, January 7th, accompanied by traveling doctors. A team at Johns Hopkins was waiting to receive him in Baltimore. The Hopkins team had asked for a lumbar puncture test and an MRI. It's a long story. I'm sure you must have read this. Let me just go to what really happened. You know what? Let's take our time to read it, out of respect. The Hopkins team had asked for a lumbar puncture test at an MRI. The Nigerian team had also decided to put in a central line used to administer IV medications in preparation for Nkanu's flight. Atlantis Hospital referred us to Urecare Hospital, which was said to be the best place to have the procedures done. The morning of the 6th, we left Atlantis Hospital to Urecare. Nkanu carried in his father's arms. We were told he would need to be sedated to prevent him from moving during the MRI and the central line procedure. I was waiting just outside the theater. I saw people, including Dr. M, rushing out into the theater and immediately knew something had happened. A short time later, Dr. M came out and told me Nkanu had been given too much propofol by the anesthesiologist and had become unresponsive and was quickly resuscitated. But suddenly, Nkanu was on a ventilator. He was intubated and placed in the ICU. The next thing I heard was that he had seizures, cardiac arrest. All this had never happened before. Some hours later, Nkanu was gone. It turns out that Nkanu was never monitored after being given too much propofol. The anesthesiologist had just casually carried Nkanu on his shoulder to the theater, so nobody knows when exactly Nkanu became unresponsive. How can you sedate a sick child and neglect to monitor him? Later, after the central line procedure, the anesthesiologist casually switched off Nkanu's oxygen and again decided to carry him on his shoulder to the ICU. The anesthesiologist was criminally negligent, was fatally casual and careless with the precious life of a child. No proper protocol was followed. We brought in a child who was unwell but unstable. Brought in a child who was unwell but unstable and scheduled to travel the next day. We came to conduct basic procedures, and suddenly our beautiful little boy was gone forever. It's like living your worst nightmare. I will never survive the loss of my child. We have now heard about 2 previous cases of this same anesthesiologist overdosing children. Why did Urecare allow him to keep working? This must never happen to another child. End of quote. It's a very sad stuff, but there's something I want you to listen to. Her relative, Dr. Anthea Esege Nwadu, is the medical director and the aunt to Chimamanda. She was on TVC News, and this is what she had to say. I'd like to take a listen to this.
For me to be sitting here talking about my boy in the past is indescribable. The pain is indescribable. My baby nephew, Nkanu, was admitted to Eurocare, as you said, for some diagnostic procedures. It's important to note that Nkanu was ill but stable for transfer to the United States as planned. He was taken to the MRI suites at Eurocare, where he received what we call moderate sedation. So he received IV medications to sedate him for the MRI procedure. He was transferred by the anesthetist to the procedure room where he was going to have the spinal tap and lumbar puncture and central line placed. Off oxygen, unmonitored. That was the first incident of negligence. For a baby who was unwell, brought in by ambulance from Atlantis on oxygen, standard clinical practice demands that such a baby is monitored continuously. Unfortunately, he got to the procedure room upstairs where the spinal tap was to be performed and was found to be pulseless. It was the neglect to put him on oxygen and monitor him continuously following IV sedation. It is important to emphasize that Nkanu was unwell. We recognize that fact. But had this not happened, had this incident and negligence not happened, he would have been alive. He had been cleared to travel within the next 24 hours to Johns Hopkins University in Maryland. If a patient is cleared medically stable to travel, that means there is some degree of stability in his medical situation. We are speaking up now for those who have no voice. We're speaking up for those who this may have happened to and had no outlets and had no means to share their story. We believe anecdotally that there probably are many other incidents like this, resulting in loss of life, that have gone unaccounted for. So we're demanding accountability. We're demanding systemic reforms in patient safety and prevention of harm. And we're demanding for accountability and consequences to medical negligence, which results in loss of life. It's a wake-up call. It is a time for we, the public, we healthcare providers, to demand accountability and transparency and consequences for negligence in our healthcare system in Nigeria. For me,
all right. That was an aunt to Chimamanda Adichie and Ivara Esege's son. Her name is Dr. Anthea Esege Wandu. And may God comfort that family. There's a news report on this day. Chimamanda Adichie serves legal notice over son's death, accuses hospital of negligence. Renowned Nigerian author Chimamanda Adichie has demanded accountability from a private hospital in Lagos, accusing it of medical negligence and professional impropriety following the death of a 21-month-old son, Nkanu Nnamdi, after a series of medical procedures. I mean, much of what's here is what the lady mentioned in the video you just listened to. So yeah, like I said, it's actually quite sad, and may God comfort that family. But I also think it's also a good opportunity to address these issues in Nigeria. According to the lady, who spoke earlier, she mentioned that there's a possibility that others have actually gone through the same thing, but nobody really spoke up. And so they are speaking up and demanding accountability, and I think it's very important that that's done. I think it's, using opportunities like this, as sad as it is, to address the issues that will actually lead to our systems getting better, our healthcare sector and every sector in Nigeria essentially. Yeah, so we got comfort that family. Okay, we're gonna have to move on now, but we're still speaking about babies. So over the weekend, an image began to trend on X of a new or of a type of milk. Is it milk tea they call it? Toothpaste for children by Maclean's, and it's becoming clear that some people are criminally minded in Nigeria. Anything can be, excuse me, anything can be done to make money. It doesn't really matter how it's done, even if it hurts people. So this soup is actually meant for children, but apparently some killers decided to manufacture fake products. I mean, fake of this. So there are two versions. Just in case you are one of those who use this toothpaste. Number one, we have to remember that many products in the market have been many fake products of what you consider, what's the word now? Many fakes of the products that we have in the market are out there. So you want to make sure that you're very careful. All right, so you don't, buy which you're not supposed to buy. This particular toothpaste is called Milk Teeth by Maclean's. But the Maclean's, the original one, of course, you know how to spell Maclean's now, Macleans. There's a version that is Macleans. It's still Maclean's. There's another one that is Madins, Madeans. So the C and L put together D. So the D looked like C and L. And then there is the Maclean's that has two E's, double E's, Macleans. So those are like three fakes of that product. I'm just saying that if you're going to the market to buy stuff, please, because bad people are everywhere. Then there's another one that I found. That one is, you pronounce it NNA cleans, NNA cleans. So the NNA is like, instead of having M, now I have two N's. NNA cleans. All right, these things are demonic because they could lead to the death of, or sickness. Even if not death, sickness is terrible. Let alone, it could also lead to death. Please just be careful out there. There are crazy people in the streets. May God protect us. I'm not going to spend so much time on the news today, but I just want to read a few things here. Adeglo, I see what you wrote in the comment section, but maybe me go read them. Hello, folks on YouTube and Facebook. Thank you very much for joining us. Please like the live and share as well. Thank you. If you're on TikTok, please just keep our tapping and also click on the heart icon above me here. Please click on the icon, drop a heart me, drop a gift. Let's push the live to the FYP together on TikTok. And if you're on Facebook or YouTube, please like and share the live stream. If you're on X, kindly like and repost. Thank you very, very much. I'll read some of the comments on YouTube, very soon. All right, let's see if this whole health matters. There's one video I'd like you to listen to. It's about the last Dirty December. I don't really like that branding, Dirty, but it works somehow. It doesn't depend on whether I like it or not. The point is it works, and I hope it gets bigger and bigger. Now, somebody came for Dirty December, and he's back in Canada, and decided to talk to his fellow abroadians or folks in diaspora. I'd like you to, when it's time to come up, please, if you're living abroad, please come and explain to us if this is a possibility. His name is Dr. Zoe. He's quite popular on social media. What he had this to say, I'd like to listen to it, and if you disagree, please feel free to come up and explain to us if this is how expensive it is to come home for Christmas. All right, take a listen, please.
Hi, Dr. Zoe. Just back from 30 December. This is my first day at work. I have to update a lot of my friends and colleagues in diaspora. They've been calling me because they saw me, they had a good time. So a lot of them want to do the same this year. And it's on me to tell them the truth. 30 December is fantastic, but there are downsides to it. And you know, January is a time for reflection, so I'll tell you the truth today. It's a very expensive project. And if you have businesses here, like large businesses, even with the very good staff, like I have, excellent staff in the world, the best, you still have a lot of work to do when you come back. It's 7:30 here today. I came to work almost by 5 o'clock, just to be able to offload the things to do. You know, you have to pay vendors, payrolls to catch up on a lot of things, paperwork. Okay, so I've been here at 7:30 now, 7:30 this morning. So I've been here for 2.5 hours, and I'm glad I did because I achieved a lot. But I was discussing one of them before I traveled, and I said, you can easily spend 90 to 100 million traveling as a family. He thought I was joking. So today, this morning, I'm going to give you only 6-7 items, and I'll tell you that I'll probably spend up to that. First of all, we got a ticket. Our tickets are not business class. My wife and I fly premium, but the kids fly economy. We paid about 40 grand, and that was in October. We bought early. That was the first ticket. Coming back, there was snowstorm in Amsterdam, so we had to buy another ticket because they canceled and they won't refund you because of weather conditions. So we spent another 25K just on the return ticket from Amsterdam because we have to take a car to Brussels, fly into London, then London to Toronto, and Toronto to Calgary. And the only seats available were premium, so we're awfully premium, another 25K. So you're talking about 65. Now, in Lagos, we had car every day for 24 hours. Normally, they'll charge you 300K Naira, but the guy was nice, it took about 250, and he provided transport for us in the east as well, bulletproof and all that, so we spent about 9 million on that one. There are a lot of shows in Lagos, very expensive, I tell you. We spent about 8 million. Davido, Flavor, Burna Boy, a lot of the kids, you know, we all went for about 3 each of them. We didn't go for all of them, about 8 million. Then the Airbnb cost us around, it's about 400K a day in the Ekate. It cost about 4.5 million. We spent 3 weeks, almost 3 weeks. And the food, you have to spend food and you have to bring a caterer. That won't take you another 4 million. And the money that we used to do Odogu, I don't even want to say get there. But if you calculate it, you're looking at 90 to 100 million. And I'm telling you, it's not a fiction. I did it. And it's not, I told my kids we're not going to do it again this year. If we have to do it, then they have to probably buy their own ticket. It's very expensive and I can't afford it. And I wouldn't advise anyone to do it. Now, Dr. Zoe, go talk.
Up in the comment section saying he's joking, right? Well, I really don't know if he is. It actually looks very serious to me. So he said himself and his family spent between 90 and 100 million naira for 30 December. So again, if you can help us to understand this whole thing. All right. There's something I wanted to say. I didn't say it earlier because I didn't feel it was time, but let me say it now. I just want to appeal to young people, particularly Yoruba, to not become what you ate. I'm trying to get away from this whole thing, but that's why I played that video. Maybe I should even stay on the video for a bit before I say what I really want to say on that on Chimamanda's matter. Someone says that they did buy the Lagos estate in. Did they buy the house estate in Lagos? You guys are just something else. I don't know. I think it's 400 plus thousand a day. Isn't that what he said? That's what I heard. He's short-let now. Then he used bulletproof cars to go to the east. I mean, maybe they're trying to live very large, because I think that's a lot of money for 3 weeks. Someone says perhaps he came home purely for show-offs. It is well. Someone says Shena Coastal Bridge built in Hey, bro. Coastal Bridge, bow. he said was unnecessary. I just said, make I bring Maybe here, because people don't return now, so we are hearing different things. We just want to know if, now how it be with that. Okay, I thought that was a lot of money for 3 weeks. I thought that was a lot of money. That was a lot of money. And I wonder, but I can't say it's not true. I'd rather just ask. And about the toothpaste, someone on YouTube, Akadol, good evening, Akadol. Good to see you. Ẹkáàbọ. It says, just patronize the big chain stores for your essential drugs and domestics. I agree. Be careful, Shao. It depends on the big store, because some big stores also sell fakes. Balog says maybe he rented King Charles's limousine. All right, let me see what I want to say. I want to appeal to young people, particularly Yoruba people on social media. Please don't become what you hate. Now, there was a time when there was an explosion in Ibadan, and people, especially folks from the southeast, began to speak against Yoruba people. So the elections have consequences. Those are the kind of things you heard around the time. There's also tragedy in Ekiti State, and obedience, and particularly young Igbo people, but in fact they're not even young, particularly Igbo people on social media, were saying how elections had consequences and these things happened because Tinubu was president. And people also have this banter on social media when they talk about death as though it was something so easy to work with. But here's the thing. Since Chimamanda's son passed, I've seen some things that I just consider heavy. One of them, I'm not going to mention the person's name because I'm not trying to demean anyone, but one person said, another Igbo animal down, your son will never rest in perfect peace, inshallah. Now, when you put things like that out, to be honest, I understand where it's coming from. I get where it's coming from. But you see, no matter what you know about history, no matter what is happening right now in politics, no matter what people have done to you, you have to find a way to make your own heart pure. There's gas boosts, like you want to, tit for tat and things like that. But when it comes to life, once you cross that line, worst thing you can play with or you can banter with. The people you are having your banters with, right, who can do that, they are not humans. These are savages. These are animals. Because when you see the explosion in Ibadan and you say elections have consequences, you have to be an animal. Like you've lost all humanity, you just go ahead to insult the people or to mock them in their grief and just say all kinds of things. You've got to be an animal. Now, if you as a human being, you're not trying to get your own pound of flesh, you now decide to say the exact same thing they said to you, you have become an animal like them. So we get where it's coming from. A lot of, something will happen, especially obedience. Most of them, of course, from the southeast, will mock the dead. You just look and pass, or you just respond. But the point is, you cannot wait for them to now experience grief or experience tragedy and now begin to mock them, because you want to also show that if you feel do for me, I feel do for you. That is a very... Please don't do it. Please don't. Because once you cross that line, you're not really about the truth anymore. You're not about, you have made yourself the same thing with them. Deji says, I think that's the only language they understand. And then that means that you don't have to communicate with them. If that's the only thing they understand, then don't bother communicating with them on that matter. Like, the one that actually shook me, I didn't talk about it because I just thought it was very heavy. But, it's past now, so I can talk about it. You remember the building that went up in flames a couple of weeks ago in Lagos, the GNI building? And, it's normal. You have mostly people say it's a lot of Igbo people. The Igbo people were killed there. targeting Igbo people, all kinds of nonsense. And apparently, a number of guys, perished in that fire, sadly. And yes, the building the building is Western Region building, yes, but some people, folks died in there, and so they released this image, obituary, and things like that. I saw people mocking. Please, let's not do that. Okay, speak up where people are going off. Check them. But when it comes to human life, be careful. And that's why I say that no matter what we say about history, even though I know that there's a lot of lies about the figures and numbers, when it comes to the war, Biafra, all those figures, mostly they are lies. But my point is, I can talk to you about the figures, but I will not be like that when I'm talking about the lives. I don't get what I'm saying. So I can tell you, and this is what I say every time, the figures are made up. If you like, you can cry from now to tomorrow. They are made up. You are using it to blackmail and manipulate people. However, I have to acknowledge that even if just one person died, that's one too many. Right? And when you do that, what that does for you is that you're able to have compassion in your heart. You don't want to harden your heart. You don't want to get to the point where you don't care about the truth. You just want to make a point. The truth is that people died, and that kind of thing should be acknowledged. We are all human beings. But you should also understand that you should also know what really happened, so that nobody gets to blackmail you like, oh, 1 billion people died, oh, see what you have done to me. That one, you cannot work with me. Now, that's the difference between understanding truth and propaganda. But the fact that you now know the truth does not change the fact that certain people died. What I'm saying basically is this: even when it's convenient to want to also pay back whatever folks have done, and I say it because we know how social media is. When it was Fulani, everybody was when Buhari was president, everybody was against Fulani people, especially from the southeast. That was when you hear about Jubril of Sudan. And even the most educated people from the southeast believe that nonsense. And when any evil thing happened, they'll tell you that it's because it's payback. People just jubilate over another person's tragedy. What that does is that, whether they know it or not, their humanity is reducing. And that's why it's easy for certain parts of Nigeria to just kill. They just kill. Because human life means nothing. You can't afford to be like that. Even so, let me tell you what I'm doing because they did to me. It doesn't really matter, because at the end of the day, your own heart will be affected. I'm just saying this because I know people on social media, everybody wants to do gbasgbos. But when it comes to, somebody's child died, you can't be saying an animal died. Clinical. No, please. I'm just appealing to you. I hope you still sense what I'm saying. But I think that you should protect your heart. Don't be what you hate, which is why you shouldn't even hate at all. Because if you hate, have you noticed that children who hate their fathers usually end up being like their fathers? Almost, they'll not become worse than what they hate, because it's the nature of things. If you hate something, and let me tell you why. We'll leave this in, but I think it's a very important thing to talk about. When you hate a thing, believe it or not, you give it your attention. You are focused on it. It's like saying, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do this. Your brain doesn't hear, I don't want to do something. You just hear the fact that there's something that's in front of you. That's where your focus is. So like, I don't want to steal, I don't want to steal, I don't want to steal, I don't want to steal. It's better to say that I'm going to, whatever good that's opposite is, it's better for you to focus on that, and then that becomes a reality. But if you're trying to run away from something, and then you keep saying, I hate my dad, he has done this to me, I don't like what he did, I don't like, after a while, you find yourself doing exactly what your father did. And before you know it, you might even become worse than him. That your own children will now look at you and say, have you ever met anybody that you say that you look at them and say, but I thought you were complaining about this same thing. How come you're doing it? It's because it has become the focus. That's what they are looking at every day. So they are becoming it. You become what you behold. Anyway, I'm saying that don't hate people. And don't wait. Don't use tragedy to pay back. It's not human. I should mention that, because history without compassion is a weapon. The knowledge, knowledge of history without compassion is a weapon, and anybody can use knowledge of politics. Knowledge generally, knowledge without compassion is a weapon that can kill. So you want to make sure you are tempering that knowledge with compassion and humanity, so that regardless, you maintain your own person. And I'm not saying I'm just saying generally speaking, because you are now becoming that person, whether knowingly or unknowingly. But thank you very much for understanding what I just said. If you don't agree with what I said, it's okay. But trust me, you don't want to be that person. You don't want to be that person, because it gets. When you hear about news of death and it doesn't touch you at all, it doesn't really matter. That means that's all right. But thank you very much for listening. Now let's go back to the news. Okay. There's something I want to be doing from time to time. I'm going to do it now. I'd like us to listen to something from Papa. So from time to time, it may not be every day or every session, but from time to time, every other session, I'll just play like a video of Papa, that's Chief Papa from Olowo, saying something. One of the beautiful things that technology has given to us is that even though the man hasn't been with us since 1987, we can still hear him, we can still see him, we can still get inspired by him. This is a video from 1958. It was at Lancaster House, London in 1958, and he spoke for a just, united, and truly federal Nigeria. I saw that news. I'm trying not to get into it. I saw it. I saw the video. I can't say I wasn't happy. Let me just put it that way. I'm not saying I'm happy, but I can't say I'm unhappy. I can't say I wasn't happy with that video. I can't say I wasn't happy. Let's just leave that there for now. But let's listen to Papa for a second. Not for a second, for about 3 minutes actually. Just listen to him. You feel his heart, and why we should be proud as Nigerians, but especially as Yoruba people. Take a listen to Chief Papa from Olowo. Again, this was in Lancaster. It was at Lancaster House in 1958 in London. Take a listen, please. Oh dear, 1 second. I think I already disconnected our other account. Just give me 1 second, please. That thing you are saying is not good though. I did in the comment section. You're looking for trouble. I cannot say I don't like it. Anyway, let's leave that matter. I'll get to it later if possible. But here is Chief Awolowo.
Of millions of people for generations to come may be affected by the wisdom which we have displayed. If Nigerian leaders and our British partners are to prove themselves worthy of their trust, now is the time for us solemnly and truly to dedicate ourselves to seeking the greatest good of the greatest number of our people in Nigeria. It is to this end that my colleagues and I pledge ourselves. The first main task of conference is to resolve those problems which defied solutions in 1957 and to evolve for Nigeria a constitution of which both the British and the Nigerian peoples can be proud. The second is to get Her Majesty's government to agree to April 2nd, 1960 as the target date for Nigeria's independence. We must ensure that in an independent Nigeria, individual citizens throughout the land enjoy liberty, human dignity, and equality under the law. There must be one Nigeria with one constitution and one law for all. Let us therefore, Mr. Chairman, sir, close our ears to the counsel of despair which says that we cannot here at this conference agree on a constitution. If there's any doubt among us as to what should be written into the constitution, let us, as Democrats that we profess ourselves to be, refer such problems, as the Gaulle has done recently, to the people whom we profess to represent, either just before or at the federal elections late in 1959.
It was at the conference of 1958, held in London, that the then Secretary of State for the colonies fixed a date for Nigeria's independence.
Like I said, we're playing that from time to time, short clips of Papa speaking, and Be Safe says, "Oh, I wish Baba Olowo had requested for plebiscite to leave Nigeria just like Southern Cameroons." Hindsight is 2020, I guess. I would have loved that. I mean, well, as we study, maybe we're going to answer those questions eventually. We'll find those questions in his works. But I'll take that as an assignment. I'd like to know why Papa didn't bother doing that. 1 second, I want to screenshot what you said so I can. By the way, I apologize. I thought this shirt would be good enough, but I mean, I can read it. It's just that I can read what you're writing. Just that if I want to screenshot, it's better that way. Gives you an idea what people like Awolowo had in mind, you know, for independence, and they fought for it. By the way, I put something on Facebook a while back, and someone went there and said that was Azikiwe. I mean, I don't know how Nigerians do things. People just make things up. Azikiwe was the one who sent an Nauro to move the motion for independence in 1953. Of course, that's stupid. I don't even have filters for people like that. It's stupid because, I mean, an Nauro was an action group, right? And when he moved the motion for that in 1953, and the NPC was against it, you know, the idea was to have independence in 1956. And this was 1958 when Awolowo began to talk about having independence in 1960. These were the people that pushed for independence, and it's important for us to hear them, you know, in their own words, and also what their vision was for Nigeria, a truly federal system. And it's a shame, in some ways, that it's 2026 and we still aren't truly federal. But hopefully with these conversations, we're going to get there. All right? When we get to today's topic, we'll get into all of that. Speaking of federal, something is brewing in Rivers State. And BKO had a very interesting point of view, actually. That's Babatide Titoloju is a fantastic journalist. He's with the TVC News. And he had this analysis of what's happening in Rivers State. We know what's happening. I mean, we talked about it the other day, where the governor, of course, is in APC now, but his godfather is in PDP, that's Wike, and his godfather does not want him to be president. Interestingly, both of them support the president. Sorry, he doesn't want his godson, so to speak, he doesn't want the governor to return, let me just put it that way. But it was the godfather who ensured he won the first time. So now he doesn't want him to get back in there. Interestingly, both of them support the president. Both of them want Tinubu to be president, but Tinubu is like in a, shall I say, a dilemma? And you know what? Let's listen to BKO actually explain this. I think it's actually quite, like, the analysis is fantastic, and I think all of us should listen to it. Let's take a listen, please.
The dilemma for the president is the president wants to win the Rivers State, the presidential election in Rivers State without any complaint. He wants to win it hands down. But he needs Fubara to make that happen. Fubara has the support of the ordinary people. They think that in this contest for power, that Fubara is the victim. And Nigerians like to side the underdog. So Rivers people are with Fubara in large numbers. The president wants to harvest that support that Fubara has in Rivers State. At the same time, he does not want to lose an ally like Nyesom Wike. But the moment Nyesom Wike saw that Fubara moved into the APC with the desire to be able to contest the election without Wike being in position to stop him, especially after he was said to have promised during a reconciliation meeting with the assembly members present, with Wike present, that he will not seek re-election. Going to the APC is meant to help him push aggressively to be able to contest for a second term without his boss breathing down his neck. The feeling out there is that Wike has unfinished business in the PDP, therefore he will not rush to go and join the APC like others are doing, which will give the governor ample time to be able to settle down and build his own core of loyalists, his own structures. Now the president has to find a way to bring this disagreement to an end. Both men, as usual, have been foolishly abusing one another. This is what they do all the time. Fubara once called Wike a rat eating the gari, which is a way of calling him a thief in public. Wike too has used all kinds of invectives against a man that he brought up politically, a man he put in the saddle at a time when so many people got up against him and said, look, this is a political upstart. Don't use him, don't field him. The president has a job to do, because at the end of the day, the president may be the big loser in this whole conflict. He knows that Wike has capacity. He knows that Wike can be fiercely loyal when he's on your side. So he does not want to lose such a person, especially with the elections just a little over a year away. He also knows that Fubara has tremendous support. In fact, if Fubara backs the president as he has promised to do, it means even Wike's enemies, people like Secondus, people like Omehia, people like Peter Odili, they are going to back the president because they are all with Fubara at this time. So it's a conflict that the president views as wrong in terms of his timing and in terms of the political implications. And that is why the president has waded in at this stage. Fubara has not said a word since the impeachment notice was served. Fubara has not said a word. He's been advised to keep quiet so that they can find a way to manage Wike, resolve the matter. And if the matter is resolved this time, it has to be conclusive. The people of Rivers State, these combatants, the House of Assembly, Nyesom Wike, Governor Simenalaye Fubara, need to stop heating up the polity by their needless conflict, name-calling, and shameful exchange of insults in the public space. I agree with the Rivers State Elders Forum that impeachment should not be a tool for political vendetta and personal interest. And they are saying that the impeachment process would deepen political divide, erode public trust, and destabilize a state yet to recover from the imposition of emergency rule and disruptions to governance. I agree absolutely. I also agree that the assemblymen should reverse the decision to come up with emergency a notice of impeachment against the governor. So they should instead prioritize peace, stability, and the collective interest of the state. I believe that at this time, an impeachment of Governor Fubara is not necessary. The political contest for machineries of the state and key appointments also need to come to an end. But I know that they will not just back off unless they are spoken to. And the president and his minders need to move quickly to have this matter resolved. Once they are given assurances, I believe that a political solution will happen. I'm confident that this matter will not get to the point of impeachment. The matter can be handled and politically resolved, especially as we are closing in on another election. So I agree with the elders that the impeachment is not necessary at this time. But I believe that the governor also needs to be spoken to. You stoop to conquer. Fubara's political naivety is there for all to see.
All right. By the way, that was fantastic. I couldn't have said anything better. That was fantastic. And just like he knew what was going to happen, breaking news. Rivers State House of Assembly members have now withdrawn impeachment proceedings against the executive governor of Rivers State, Governor Sim Fubara, and his deputy after the intervention of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Take a listen to representatives of the folks in the Rivers State House of Assembly. Take a listen, please.
Good afternoon, gentlemen of the press. My name is Honorable Silvanus Enin Nawankwo. I represent Omoma State Constituency at the Rivers State House of Assembly, and I'm also the minority leader of the 10th Assembly.
My name is Honorable Peter Abbey, JP, and I represent Digima State Constituency in the House of Assembly.
Gentlemen, you are all aware that the Rivers State House of Assembly issued a notice of impeachment on the governor of Rivers State. So similarly, Fubara and the deputy governor of Rivers State. But we have called this press conference to appeal to our fellow colleagues to tamper justice with mercy and to see how we can resolve this matter apart from the impeachment proceedings. That is why we are here this morning to appeal to the conscience of our fellow colleagues, having listened to so many pleas, calls from our elders and leaders, both within and outside the state, begging for leniency. We are begging, calling our colleagues to reconsider our step and see how this matter can be resolved amicably, even though the governor and the deputy governor has infringed on the Constitution. But we're appealing on them to reconsider our stand. Thank you so much.
as the minority leader said, the governor, yes, he has infringed on parts of the constitution, but we are human beings, and we as people, as members of the 10th Assembly, we want to plead with our colleagues to please reconsider. This, we have received calls from leaders, from people in River State, outside River State, and we see that you don't raise the axe and swing it as you raise it. So we plead with our colleagues to reconsider, to please reconsider, provided the governor too has a role to play. He too must make sure he doesn't infringe furthermore on the Constitution. So that will bring an amicable settlement to the whole thing. Thank you.
All right. So this is the governor speaking on the matter. I don't think this video came out after what we just listened to. He has said this before, and I think it's also important for people who are keeping tabs on what's happening in River State to listen to this. This is River State Governor Simifu Bara replying Wike, and I'm going to play what Wike has said about what people are saying, saying that the president should sack him and things like that. We'll listen to that, then we'll move to other things. But here's Simifu Bara replying Wike. Take a listen, please.
What is happening here in our dear state is somebody who have respect for an elder. Mr. President invited all the parties to Abuja and came out with a resolution that we should go and implement. That resolution, I'm implementing it, is not a constitutional implementation. It's a political solution to a problem. And I'm doing it because of the respect I have for Mr. President. But let me say it here. If that action that I've accepted to follow will be taken for my weakness, I will surprise them. I want this message to go to them. And I believe you know what I mean. Maturity is not about age. Maturity is in person. I choose not to respond to people that I assume that are mature, but immature in attitude. Brace up. I say brace up. Because the next step, it will be fire for fire in local government. Everything will be implemented.
While they are looking for fire, there's somebody responding to that fire. This time, let's listen to the FCT minister. He is on Wike. Number one.
Our own is the vote. So if you like, abuse us. After abusing us, come and look for the vote. And we'll punish you with the vote. So don't bother about people who say, sack me. It doesn't lie in their mouth. If my appointer believes that I cannot offer anything again, he has a right. It's not that you should tell him. But I'm very proud that all the people are proud, that Rivers people are proud. And we can tell Nigerians we have not disappointed them as far as it is concerned. I said yesterday.
All right, that's a lot from Rivers State. We hope that these new developments will actually lead to peace in that land, and folks will know how to better deal with one another. All right, away from that, this happened a couple of days ago. Well, not a couple actually, but over the weekend. Malami slows bail processing as DSS operatives besiege Kuje prison to rearrest ex-AGF on terrorism financing allegations. I don't know if you remember that it was released. Well, they talked about the fact that they had to get, what's the word now? Shorty and so on and so forth. He should release from Kuje prison. Anyway, while they were trying to release him, or while he was happy that he will be able to go home, Malami has now been rearrested on terrorism financing allegations. This is from Sahara Reporters. I'm just going to read a bit of it. It says sources are former Minister of Justice and Attorney General of the Federation, Abubakar Malami, SAN, has delayed the processing of his bail following the heavy deployment of operatives of the Department of State Services, DSS, to the Kuje Custodial Center in Abuja, Sahara Reporters has learned. Sahara Reporters earlier on Thursday reported that Kuje Medium Security Custodial Center, MSCC, had been placed under a heavy security blanket as over 50 DSS operatives took up strategic positions around the facility beginning Wednesday. Sources have described an intense atmosphere in the prison facility as the secret police arrived in a convoy of approximately 6 Toyota Hilux vans. The operatives established a perimeter around the prison gates, monitoring all entries and exits with heightened scrutiny. Sources describe the deployment as a preemptive move to ensure that Malami, being held at the facility, does not escape an investigation into terrorism financing, especially after he was granted bail by the Federal High Court in Abuja in his 8.7 billion naira money laundering case on Wednesday. According to sources familiar with the development, Malami therefore instructed his legal team to slow down the bail process amid fears that DSS operatives were prepared to rearrest him immediately upon his release in connection with an ongoing investigation linked to alleged terrorism financing. Quote, Malami has slowed down his bail processing as DSS operatives besiege Kuje prison to arrest him for terrorism-related charges upon being released on bail, a top security source said. The former Attorney General has told his lawyers to step down his bail processing as over 50 DSS officers lay siege to the prison compound waiting to pounce on him. End of quote. It was gathered that the former Attorney General has remained inside the facility's VIP segregation cell, a section of the prison reportedly refurbished by former Police Intelligence Chief Abba Kyari. The cell has in the past housed other high-profile detainees. Quote, Malami has remained holed up in the VIP segregation cell that was refurbished by the disgraced Super Cop Abba Kyari and recently hosted Prince Emmanuel Kanu, younger brother of imprisoned IPOB, Indigenous People of Biafra leader Nnamdi Kanu. End of quote, one of the sources said. Meanwhile, Abubakar Abdulaziz, Malami's son, who was remanded at Kuje prison alongside his father and the latter's fourth wife, Ajia Bashir Asabe, is still at the prison's clinic. Last Tuesday, Sahara Reporters reported that Abdulaziz was rushed to the prison's clinic after he suddenly fell ill. Abdulaziz, who had complained of ill health shortly after the arrival at the facility, was subsequently admitted for observation. Malami's son remains at the clinic of the prison after he feigned illness upon arrival at Kuje, a source said. Early on Tuesday, December 30, 2025, the EFCC arraigned Malami alongside Asabe and Abdulaziz before Justice Emeka Nwite of the Federal High Court in Maitama, Abuja. The defendants face a 16-count charge of conspiracy, procuring, disguising, concealing, and laundering proceeds of unlawful activities amounting to 8,713,923,759 naira 49 kobo, contrary to the money laundering. On Wednesday, Justice Nwite granted bail to Malami and the two other defendants in the sum of 500 million naira each, with two shorties. The court ruled that the shorties must own landed property in Ibrow, Abuja districts, including Asokoro, Maitama, Ogwarimpa, and are required to deposit their travel documents with the court. All right. Very long read, isn't it? Just a little bit. In December, when EFCC detained Malami, sources said the investigation was linked to terrorism financing and the whereabouts of Abacha loot recovered from Switzerland and the island of Jersey in the United Kingdom. However, terrorism financing was not included in the charges later filed by the EFCC. So essentially what's happening right now is this. They told him to go home. Issue, the bail, what do they call that, Oyibo? 500 million naira. That's the amount they're supposed to pay each. That was 1.5 billion naira. Interesting. Just for bail. So you can notice, say all these DSS people waste around this place. They can't arrest him. So you can talk, say, main people know post bail. May just leave on there for now. I don't know what that strategy actually is meant to achieve, but we'll see how things go and then we'll report it when we get more information. So Malami slows bail processing as DSS operatives besiege Kuje prison to rearrest ex-AGF on terrorism financing allegations. I mean, this case has been on for a while. We've been hearing about it. There are certain people in the government were financing terrorists. And we'll see how it goes, and whatever we hear, we will let us know. All right. By the way, they mentioned Justice Nwite, who was the one. It was the judge who, told them about the whole bill thing. There's a video, if I find it, I'll let you know, where the defense team for Malami, talking about the fact that what the justice said, that may have been his reality, but that they're not trying to influence him in any way. But let me read to you what the justice actually said. Justice Emeka Nwite of Ebonyi State has publicly revealed that lawyers and litigants attempted to bribe him to pervert justice in Malami's case, and he was having none of it. Speaking openly in court recently, the judge issued a rare and stern warning. I want to admonish and warn counsel and litigants that all judges are not the same. When I am handling any case, please don't approach me. You may get the best lawyers in this country, but don't attempt to approach me for any help. I am not that type of judge. God gave me this job and I vow to do it to the best of my ability, without fear or favor. Any attempt to pervert justice will be vehemently resisted. This is actually quite good, and it's something that we should celebrate. I saw this online. I thought I should share it with you. So that's Justice Emeka Nwite. Okay? Good news, right? God bless that judge. Yes, God bless that judge. 1 second. I want to see if I can find you. Yeah, that's from People's Gazette. Abdul Mahmoud, Justice Nwite's unintended confession in Abubakar Malami's corruption trial. Okay, that's where that is from. From People's Gazette. Okay. All right, so God bless the judge, and hopefully we have more like that, more of him, or more judges like him who will, stand for the truth and not pervert justice in the name of whatever, greed or such things. All right, let's move on. Final stuff that will probably take us to today's conversation. But let me read some things on YouTube. New Era says, Malami, okay, let me go up just a bit before you. Okay, still New Era. He says, Uncle Gideon told you often speaks with wisdom, though I don't agree on his behalf that FG should give Kanu amnesty. I didn't know he said he should give them amnesty, but let's just stick to what he said today. All right. Okay. He says Kanu needs to be punished. What's up with Kanu? Kanu is not in the news. Near on YouTube says Kanu needs to be punished so Nigerians understand that Nigerian lives cannot be sacrificed cheaply. I don't know why what brought Kanu to your conversation, but okay. Near also says Tinubu needs to reconcile Wiki and Fubara. I think he has done enough. He'll probably just find a way to make sure that he satisfies both of them. However, he does that. Nera also says Malami ex-AG financing terrorists, but why? This fits into Abacha saying, quote, if insurgency lasts more than 24 hours, then government has a hand in it, end of quote. Well, that's true. Well, looks like he was right. But it's a shame that the Attorney General of the Federation will be involved in terrorism. But we'll wait to see what the court says. Is it a rumor? Is it just someone, is it just an allegation? Or is it true? We'll discover that as the case goes on. Damlola Duban, Jekro Leo, thank you very much for being here. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'll read Facebook and then we'll get to the final video, then move on to the next. So if you want to speak, please send a request. I'll bring you up at some point. That's Pastor Adeboye. By the way, Wolfbeck was good. In case you know anything about Wolfbeck, World Faith Believers Convention. It was fantastic. Started on the 2nd, ended yesterday. It was sweet. If you were there, God bless you. If you're not there, watch the videos. It's on YouTube. But seriously, it's actually a very good program. Pastor Adeboye was around yesterday. What was I looking for before we got into all of this? How did you get it? Okay, I wanted to see comments on Facebook. That's how I saw that. All right. Lawal Maruf Yusuf says, but is it right for Olubadan to snub him? I don't want to talk about this thing sincerely. I don't want to talk about it. All I'm saying is that I cannot say I'm not happy that happened. That's all I'm going to say. For now. Unless, of course, our Minikin Soromi. But let me read some things here. Concilium says the problem with a lot of Nigerians in the public sphere, let me take that again. The problem with a lot of Nigerians in the public sphere is tact. They can't help themselves. To be honest, when I look at the way people communicate on social media as well, I don't think people are actually taught to be tactful, to be courteous. We like, I better bash my neighbor, you know who I am, do you know who I am, you know where I be. That thing often shows in everything we do. So when we become politicians, we just carry it on. There is no tact, there is no subtlety for the most part. And I'm not saying nobody does it. Of course, we have good politicians, but generally speaking, I think we just have this thing where once you have power, you just speak. Everybody's supposed to just bow. It doesn't always happen like that, but I'm sure you're right with your submission. MK McNich says Fubara is not a wise governor. I don't know about that. Considium says you get what you give, and I guess so. Okay, so I think the video I know the video the person on Facebook was referring to. It's a video of, I saw it earlier. The other thing was at an event. It was seated. Then you know what? I will talk about it as I'm watching it. So I want to make sure that because back on. But you see, you have to be very careful in this life. Once you begin to tell everybody you are bigger than them, one day people also tell you how big you are. That's the lesson to learn. All this, is it right, is it wrong? That's not the point. Forget if it's right or wrong. I could tell you if it's right or wrong, but I don't want to go into that. I just want to talk about the wisdom to glean from this. Okay, so the Olubadan is walking to the high table. The Shawon of Ogumosho rises, he stands up and allows the Olubadan to, so for instance, he's seated, there's an empty seat, and then the Alafin is here. So the Shawon is seated here, there's an empty seat, the Alafin is here. Olubadan is coming this way. The Shawon stands up so that he could cross to this side. No, when you see the video, I'll put out the video maybe tomorrow. And then the Alafin then stretches his hand. He's still seated and stretches his hand to the Olubadan, Oba Rashid Adewolu Ladoja, and he snubs him. So the person in the comments, I'm saying this because in case you have not seen that video and you're wondering why the person on Facebook was asking that question. So the question is it right or wrong? And my answer is, it's not about right or wrong. It's about what lessons can you learn from what just happened. If you go everywhere telling everybody you are bigger than them, you are this. You know, I told you the other day when the Olubadan said, I am the Olubadan of Ibadan, and Ibadan has 11 local governments. I told you, I don't know if you remember, that he was not talking about himself. He was talking to somebody else. Tactics in Kenya. He was talking to somebody else. Okoroni. He wasn't really talking about himself. If you understand communication Yoruba, you understand what he was saying. He was talking to somebody. When he said, I know the limits of my influence, I'm the Olubadan of Ibadan land, not of your state. He wasn't talking about himself, even though he was talking about himself, but you get what I'm saying. So if you are in the habit of telling everybody you are bigger than them, and you're quoting something that happened with Queen Elizabeth, they will tell you, number one, this is not Queen Elizabeth's era. Number two, the world began before Elizabeth. Yoruba history did not begin with the British. And even that history that British came with is not even what you're telling us that happened. You see, thank God that all the treaties that all these kings signed, we all have access to them now. If not, we just say that and so once they say it, you have to say okay sir. Kẹ́bẹ̀ lógún kọ́lọ́n lọ́rọ̀ ẹ̀mí àwọn méjèèjì àti gbogbo àwọn ọba àwọn kábíyèsí wa kí kádépẹ́ lórí kí bàtà pẹ́ lẹ́sẹ̀. Ṣùgbọ́n tó bá ti ń kọjá yìí, èmi ò dárúkọ ẹ̀rọ kan tí wọ́n bá ń kọjá yìí tó bá dé gbèdéke kan, àwọn yà sọ pé ìbẹ̀rẹ̀ ni àyè ẹ̀ mọ̀, ìyẹn ní ilẹ̀ dá kò dá kó máa sọ fún yàn pé ibi tá yẹ mọ̀ nù. Ìbàdàn mo fi sọ̀rọ̀ báwọn. Where did that come from? I have no idea. Anyway, once they begin to tell you that ibẹ̀ la yẹ mọ̀, bí tó ń fi àparí iṣu lọ àlejò ni o, òwélé tó lọ ọ̀nà. Tell everybody you are bigger, you are clinical, you are greater, you are this, you are that. In your state, they already said it. The of the Council of Chiefs is rotation. Was the other of the time? That's why I said, listen, and for our personal lives, see, don't inherit people's beef. So you don't know what happened, though. You don't know how they got there. Just if you heard that your father was writing somebody, you don't have to be greeting that person, but at least don't be beefing that person because you don't know what happened. You became a king. It's up to 1 year. There's always something about you. You're asking me, is it right or wrong? Okay. Better learn lesson. They've snubbed. It is well. May God bless. But like I said earlier, and it's true, I cannot say I'm not happy with what happened. I'm not saying I'm happy with it, but I cannot say I'm not happy with it because at some point, see, if you want to do part also, say, is the one that you guys are disrespecting. Say, oh, Abore. Some of you don't have sense. Say Abore. Because you have to have, if you have to be senseless to be calling your name Abore. Oh, Kiniko, he saw him. I can't even say the things that this clown say. Insult him anyhow, you know. If Kiniko. This is a source for all of us Yoruba people who forget where you are from. As Yoruba people, we consider that place to be our source. By the way, the symbolic importance of that understanding actually helps you to find your way on earth, especially in a place like Nigeria. How many groups in Nigeria do you think can say that? We don't know what we have as Yoruba people. How many groups in Nigeria can say Ibi Latiwa? Ọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀ àwọn èèyàn ló jẹ́ pé mi fẹ́ sọ yóò ní èbò. Ọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀ àwọn ẹ̀yà ló jẹ́ pé àwọn òyìnbó ló kó wọn pọ̀. Àwọn kan sọ̀rọ̀ tó jọra wọn, right? Bó ní kálukú ń dá tiẹ̀ ṣe lọ́tọ̀ọ̀tọ̀. Wọ́n lè sọ pé ibi báyìí pàtó làwọn ti, excuse me. Wọ́n lè sọ pé ibi báyìí pàtó làwọn ti pàdé. Wọ́n lè sọ pé ibi báyìí làwọn ti ṣẹ̀. Ọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀ ìyá wà bẹ́ẹ̀ Nàìjíríà àmọ́ nǹkan tá a ní ni o. Wọ́n lè sọ pé ibi báyìí làwọn ti ṣẹ̀. Wọ́n kó wọn pọ̀ pé òkè ẹ mọ̀ jẹ́ báyìí. Débi pé àwọn kan wà láàrin wọn sọ pé àwọn ò jẹ́. wọ́n jẹ́ orúkọ yẹn tí ìbá ṣe until 1930s 40s. In that same group, there are people even up to today who tell you that they are not that ethnic group. So somebody will just wake up and say, okay, Moju Baba Milo, I'm bigger than all of you. You can do that to Oni, this particular Oni, by the way, because he isn't really about that Moju. He doesn't care about supremacy. Nobody can try that thing with Oboko Adesha. You can't. Àti sọ̀rọ̀ gba orí ẹ̀ àti fi ẹ́sà yẹ. He may not fight, but will give you collect. But this president Oni is peaceful. But iṣẹ́ tá a jẹ́ tẹ̀tẹ̀ ẹ má ṣe bẹ́ẹ̀ jẹ́ Dagunro. You're not going to do it for Olubadan. Ha. Number one, he's been on this earth for a very long time. He's a man over 80 years old, right? He's not a young. He's only one bit. He's been running his businesses for more than 40 years. A lot of people do not know that man owns one of the biggest shipping lines in this country. It's just that people don't talk about it. I'll get to former government later. People don't talk about it. One of the biggest private shipping lines on the continent. Forget country, and you can go and check this thing. Go and fact check. One of the biggest private shipping lines on the continent is owned by this man. Not today, I'm saying about 40. He has been building that thing for about 40 years ago. Before he became senator in 92, 93. That's the same set as Asiwaju, the president now. They were senators at the same time. He was already established in business, in shipping. All the films that we watch, Koshegbe, Shaore, Deoleku, you know that man is the executive producer of all those movies. You may not know, but please, you can also go and check it. You will see it, executive producer Rashid Adewale Ladoja. Mainframe movies, all those mainframe films, I'm aware. He's been around for a lot. When he started doing that thing, the man was senator, he was governor, he has his own disciples, he created a party. Accord party is his brainchild. Accord. That kind of person now becomes king. You now want to think that he's just going to be saying, hey, what's up? That's why before even Goriakbere, he said it. He said last year, said that I'm rotate the car. There are 32 seats in the House of Assembly. 32. One of those seats, one of those people needs speaker, so 31 seats. 31 seats, Ibadan needs 16. And he said something very, very instructive. Tiba the forever, because I don't need Bojumbe. Although two thoughts, but the point is that they are not a minority in that house. He was sending a message. So that kind of person now want to just. This is where you begin to more Oni. Hopefully everybody might calm down. We'll know exactly how to live as Omoluabi. Because but this particular action, I cannot say I'm not happy. All right. Having said that, what was that? Sorry, somebody was saying something in the comment section. Is it the same Mackenzie that comes up here that acts very gentle? Is it the one saying Yariba? It says, why you not go pay me school mining a way to Gulper? It's not the same Mackenzie that comes up here and acts calmly and just want to say, I just want to talk. It's the same one. So Mackenzie, you can be like this. Well done. Congratulations. Thank you. All right. I'm going to bring somebody up. I think we have someone down there. We'll bring the person up, we'll listen, and then we'll go to the video I want to respond to, and then the topic of today. I'm very glad we're 6:11, so 6:11 p.m. We'll finish soon. Someone said, go see waiting, and they reply to. I saw it. What did you? I saw what you replied to now. The funny thing is that what he said, I mean, you need some emotional intelligence, to be honest. I saw what he said. I could have, mentioned the ethnic group. I didn't mention it. The person did not mention it. He wrote something. You made it yours. And when you made it yours, you were too emotionally deficient. You just went ahead to say, Yariba, and so on. Away to go up. The person never mentioned Igbo. You can use to scroll up and read what he wrote. But don't worry. I think it's nature. Like it comes out. If anywhere, character is like smoke. You can't really cover it for too long. So it's okay. Don't worry. It's fine. It's not fine, but it's okay. All right, let's have some people come up. They will speak, and then we will move to, oh dear, we have a number of people. I thought it was one person. Okay, I can take a break. We'll listen to them, take everybody down, then we'll listen to this video and go with it. You know what, let's do like this. Let's listen to this one video. I'll speak on it. People will come outside. If you want to talk, you talk about everything at the same time. And then we'll now go to the topic. I think that'll be a lot easier, okay? Someone says, at least Ojukwu taught them how to insult their fathers. Azikiwe said Ojukwu pulled a gun on his dad. Hey, who said that? Fola. Hey, Jehovah. It's you. Okay. Ẹkáàbọ. That's heavy. One day I read a book by, I'll even look for it while we're talking. One of the people that worked with Ojukwu, and what Ojukwu's father told him while he was working with Ojukwu. To be honest, nobody only pass, but some people need help. All of us need help. I'm trying not to be condescending, but the truth of the matter is this: there are some ethnic groups in Nigeria that they created this foundation, or they planted this seed that can never produce anything good in society. We're about to listen to a video. I saw this video earlier today. It was painful to watch. To hear a young person, this girl, again, these are 20-year-olds. These are kids, they're children. This girl is in her 20s. The ignorance, the victim mindset, and I wrote something about it on YouTube. I said that every Igbo elder should be proud. I said they have successfully installed the victim mindset into the next generation. And it's painful, but I'll read to you what I wrote, after we have all listened. So please take a listen to this young lady. Again, may God help her, but she'll be all right. Take a listen, please.
Kids will never be presidents. My future kids will never be presidents of Nigeria. Because I'm Igbo, and it's not just Igbo. We are talking almost every tribe in Nigeria. If you're not from the northern tribe, you're not a Yoruba person, forget it. Your child can never, ever be president. Nigeria has had 16 presidents since the beginning of this country. When Nigeria was created, Igbo people were against it, which was why the first president of Nigeria was a sellout, Nnamdi Azikiwe, who was placed there by the colonizers, who needed him just to get the support of the Igbo people. Nnamdi Azikiwe was overthrown by Aguiyi, who was killed 6 months after he took power. Since that time, no Igbo man has ever been president of Nigeria. No Akwa Ibom man has ever been president of Nigeria. No Rivers State man has ever been president of Nigeria. No Edo man has ever been the president of Nigeria. It's just been 2 tribes who have been leading this country since the beginning. The Northerners and the Yoruba tribe. Nigeria has kids in school right now thinking that they will be presidents one day, but they don't know because of their tribes, they will never be the presidents of Nigeria. That is tribalism at its highest height.
No lazy man in Igbo land, but there's lazy man in other tribes in the Nigeria. Average Igbo man looks for what he will eat.
Igbo man not the hustle, and Igbo man the hustle, man. Igbo man not the hustle, and Igbo man the hustle. Igbo man not the hustle, and Igbo man the hustle.
If they leave Akwa Ibom people to live in this Akwa Ibom, only them, they can do anything. They can do anything of their own without the Igbos. If they leave Akwa Ibom people to live in this Akwa Ibom, only them, they can do anything. They can do anything of their own without the Igbos. Okay. So that is how it is, generally.
Useless Edo youth, the stupid Edo youth, the uncircumcised Edo youth to be very useless, including their Oba.
Edo and Igbo, they be brother. We not be brother. Igbo and Edo can never be brother. We not be brother.
10 Igbo man is equivalent to 1,000 Yoruba men. Carry 1,000 Yoruba men, put for desert. Come back in the next 10 years, that place will still be desert. But carry 10 Igbo men, put for desert. Come back in the next 5 years, they will turn that desert to Dubai.
When last did you visit Dubai in the southeast? Anybody here? When last did you visit Dubai in the southeastern part of Nigeria? Because 1 ma is equal to 10,000 ma. Holy Ghost. I didn't plan to play that second video, by the way. It was for some weird reason, just played automatically. Oh boy, where do we begin? Okay, let's go back to the original stuff. I mean, I don't even want to talk about these clowns talking about how they're better than everybody else. So, I mean, I don't know this girl. I wish I did. I would have sat her down to maybe help. Sincerely, at this point, it's about compassion. I want to read what I wrote on TikTok, on Twitter. Then I'm going to read to you the breakdown of past Nigerian presidents, past and present. This is what I wrote when I saw this shame of a video. Every Igbo leader should be proud of this. They have successfully installed a victimhood mindset into the younger generation. Now these kids believe they are perpetual victims. They will continue the internal conflict and external resentment without knowing the facts of history. This is the result of decades of propaganda that began in the 1930s. A narrative driven by Igbo elites who simultaneously declare themselves superior to everyone else and victims of everyone else. The propaganda worked for a while until it didn't. Who will help these kids? These children need help. Forget people, again, sincerely, from my heart, this is actually a cry for, I think these kids are crying for help. They've been caged in this cocoon where all they are fed with is lies, propaganda, and they are told from when they were kids that they were second-class citizens, that they were hated, that they're victims, they're marginalized, and it shows in everything they say. I think this is a cry for help, and I want to just advise Igbo, especially the ones who are older, please break this pattern. An Igbo man is as Nigerian as any other person. He's not a second-class citizen. He's a Nigerian like a Hausa man or a Yoruba man, or a TV man or an Idoma man. He's just like everybody, but he is not better than everybody. And this is the real issue for Igbos. There's an assumption that you are somehow better. And if you think I'm joking, I'll read it to you when the time comes. It was something even your own intellectuals, your lecturers, your doctors, your academicians, those were supposed to have sense. It was something that they parroted in the 1960s, that they were somehow superior to every other ethnic groups in Nigeria, every other ethnic group in Nigeria. And you look at the history, you can't really find the superiority they're talking about. Whether it's history or present, even future, like it doesn't make sense. You are like every group. You are not worse than anybody, but you're not better than anybody. When you shout, I'm better than you, I'm stronger than you, I'm this than you, it's actually because you know that you're inferior. That is the rhetoric of an inferior person. I'm better than you. Why? his essence, his identity is only found in comparison. The result of comparison is what gives him that kind of, identity. I've compared myself to you, I'm better than you. That's it. It's not I am good, it's not I am this. No, it's I am something than. If you raise a child and you raise your children based on comparison, you have destroyed that kid before you even got the chance to live. You wake up in the morning, I'm strong, I'm healthy. Not I'm healthier than the other person. And you see it in our prayers. Some people, some funny prayers too. I better pass my neighbor mentality. I'm stronger than, I'm richer than, we have more money than. That is not good for your own well-being as an individual. You are blessed. I have this. I am this. Period. It doesn't need to. You don't have to compare yourself. Bible says, and I'm a Christian, but Bible says those who compare themselves with themselves are not wise. In other words, comparison shows that you lack wisdom, and to do it at an ethnic level is a shame. But it's not the fault of these children. This is something that the elders began in the 1930s. We're going to get into that today. I'm going to read something to you before I even read the list of presidents, because I think it doesn't look like, I don't want it to look like we're just making things up. You can't raise a people like this. By the way, she opened this whole tirade with, I can't say it, but let me play it for you. I can't repeat that thing because it's not my reality, but let's listen to it together.
My future kids will never be presidents of Nigeria because I'm Igbo, and it's not just Igbo. We are talking almost every tribe in Nigeria. If you're not from the northern tribe, you're not a. My future kids will never be presidents of Nigeria because I'm Igbo, and it's not just.
Future kids will never be president of Nigeria. I saw someone in the comment section saying amen. I can't even fight you. Let me tell you what Igbo intellectuals said in the 1960s. This is from Mbeyi Collections, Biafra Newsletter, Volume 1, Number 8, 1st March 1968. They said that it would be wrong to see the Igbos as grabbers of most of the offices in the country. Rightly considered, they deserved to hold this post by virtue of their talents. They were superior to other ethnic groups in culture and civilization. They were the most receptive to new ideas and the most able to assimilate them. It would be most unfair and unjust for any other people in Nigeria, particularly the Northerners, to wish to dominate Nigeria. For Northern Nigeria lacked education and culture and was never in a position to contribute to the advancement or progress of the country. They were superior to other ethnic groups. That's why what I said earlier when I said that the Igbo is not a second-class citizen, that's not what the average Igbo person wants to hear. What I've said is supposed to be obvious to even the most stupid person, like everybody is the same, we're all in one Nigeria. That's not what he wants to hear. He wants to hear that he's better. If you can't say that, then somehow you have reduced him. By the way, I'm not saying all Igbo people are like this, though. There are always exceptions, and I recognize them, and I like to say that from time to time. But the point is that it's a culture. If you have not seen it, that means you've not been living in Nigeria. It's a culture. You see it, and better. And so when you are now put in your place as, if you get to a point, if I'm treating you like equal, and you keep asserting and saying you are better than me, I'll relegate you. Forget equal, I'll make you less. Just to prove to you they are not all that. Which is something similar to what we were talking about earlier about the handshake, but that's a story for another day. But you get the point. Once you begin to, when they now bring you down, you now be fighting everybody and say they are made me second-class citizen. Well, it's self-fulfilling prophecy. So that's what their own intellectuals said in the 1960s. I'll read something else to you from what they said. No, let's leave this one because it should take me to something else. It's about unitary system. Anything that would allow, if you read the 1964 document referring to what they planned in 1944, what the phrase they wrote, I can never forget that phrase, is to have perpetual rule of the federation. That was the plan. It was a 1944 plan that was supposed to be hatched or fulfilled or accomplished in 1964, perpetual rule of the Federation. Anything below that makes a person out feel like, oh, I'm second class. But you're not really second class citizen. I'm just trying to tell young people, you're not a second class citizen. No. You're not. You're not. You have as much right as any other person in Nigeria, but you are not better than anyone. As a matter of fact, in your history, there's nothing that makes you better than anybody, if you're really keeping it a buck. But you have the same rights as everybody, which is why you've had two heads of state. There are people who have not had any. This girl, she's a victim of lies. So, but the kind of video where they come here, I'll go play them, by the way. I'll go play all these videos. I'll go back and play them. Let me read to you where we've had our president since 1960, very quickly. Our first president was Nnamdi Azikiwe. He became president in 1963. By the way, it should be said that from 1960 to 63, he was governor general. 63 was when Nigeria became a republic, and that was when we had a president. So he was president from 63 to 66. He was an Igbo man. Ironsi became president in 66. He was Igbo. Now, she mentioned that there are only two tribes. Number one, I'm not from Yoruba tribe. Yoruba is an ethnic nationality. It's a nation. Okay, it's stupid to call Yoruba people tribal or tribesmen or tribe, whatever. Like I always say, you can't see ethnic nationalities in Europe and call them tribes. I don't know why people call Yoruba tribes. So I'm from an ethnic nationality. But that aside, she said the North and Yoruba are the two tribes. Now, people have to also go to school in this country. I know what they teach in schools these days. The North is not a tribe. It's not even an ethnic nationality. There are more than 100 ethnic groups in the North. There are more than 100 ethnic groups in the North. The North is not one homogeneous place, one monolith where everybody is the same. There are many groups that you'll be shocked. There are some states in the North that have more than 40 ethnic groups. 30 in some cases. Go to Taraba, go to Adamawa, go to Plateau. You will see local governments that have more than 5 ethnicities. So this thing of there's an ethnic group called North doesn't make sense. Again, maybe it's the failure of educational system. I don't know, but it is what it is. Let's get into this. So the first two, by the way, were Igbos. That's Azikiwe and Aguirre. The third one, that's Yakubu Gowon, is not a Hausa. Yakubu Gowon is an Angas man. He's from Plateau State. Hausas are not really native to that place. He's Angas. Number 4 is Murtala Mohammed, who became president in 75, and he's Fulani. He's from Kano. But of course, people will say Hausa Fulani. We know the meaning of the Hausa Fulani, but it's a political creation, identity, but it's Fulani. Some people are saying something about him being Auchi, but again, rumors. Nothing solid on that. Then we had General Olusegun Obasanjo. It's Yoruba, of course. He was the first Yoruba to become head of state. 1976, and he became head of state because his boss was assassinated. It was not a vote. It was not an election. They didn't vote. His Oga was assassinated. After Obasanjo was Shehu Shagari, that was a civilian president. 1979-1983, he was Fulani from Sokoto. Then Major General Muhammadu Buhari, head of state, 83 to 85, civilian president 2015 to 2023. He's Fulani. He's from Katsina State. Ibrahim Badamasi Babangida is not Hausa. He's Gbagi or Gwari. Some call them Gwari, some call them Gbagi. Niger State. Some people have said Nupe. So between those two, you can pick, but it's definitely not Hausa. And Shodakan is Yoruba. He was there for a couple of months, interim head of government from Ogun State. General Sani Abacha is not Hausa. It was Kanuri. General Salami Abubakar is Fulani. Hausa Fulani, they call them. Some people say he's not Hausa exactly, but he's from Niger State. Someone says, what of Yaradua? Yaradua is the next one I'm about to read after Obasanjo. Yaradua is Fulani. He's from Katsina State. He's not Hausa. Good luck Ebele Jonathan is not Yoruba. He's from the south. He's Ijo. So this one that only Yoruba and the Northerners is also a lie. Ijo man, President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan from 2010 to 2015. And right now we have President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, go figure, is Yoruba. 2 fingers in the air, peace. All right. Excuse me, please. Sorry, guys. Sorry about that. As quickly I address something. Someone says that are now saying that with the way things are going, they won't get it. Okay, so the point is, we've had a Yoruba person, that's true. We've had Ijo, we've had Fulani, we've had Gwari, we've had Angas. All right. The North is not one ethnicity. There are many groups. There's Angas, there's Gwari, there's Nupe, there's Bachama, there's Idoma, there's Tiv. Of course, there's also there's Fulani. There are many groups. There's Adara. There are many groups. Okay, so that's the first thing. There are many groups. Number two is only Yoruba and the Northern tribe. Not the North has many groups. Number two, we've also had Igbo heads of state. But I said something last week, and I think it's important for me to say it at this point. And I say this with all humility and respect. At this rate, you will not have a president from the Southeast in another 60 years. And I don't say that because I'm not cursing anybody. I'm just telling you that based on what has happened in the last 60 years, by the way, this is 2026. This time 60 years ago, Aguiyi Ironsi was in power. I was there from January to July. The things that he did, they never told you guys. You were just told that you were hated. You never asked questions either, just because you're a victim. It's a sad thing, by the way. So in 60 years, you've not had anybody getting there based on certain things, and you have not changed those things. So the next 60 years, so the past 60 years, you've not had anybody getting there. The next 60 years, you may not have anybody get there based on what you are doing right now, because you have not changed, you have not done anything differently from what has been done in the last 60 years. You get what I mean? Apart from saying I'm a victim. Do I think he's right? It's not about whether he's right or wrong. It's about the fact that you cannot not be a Nigerian and want to lead Nigeria. You cannot curse the country and hate the country and then want to lead the country. Osiki, that's what you are doing in the comment section. You are saying, what of Peter Obi? Peter Obi was governor of Anambra State. That's all. It is well. You can't get that thing. You hate this place. I'm not saying every Igbo individual hates Nigeria, but I'm saying if you put all the ethnicities together in Nigeria and you do sampling, I show you Boso. You have sample size, right? And then you do sampling of all the ethnicities. The vast majority of Igbos hate Nigeria, but they want to lead Nigeria. And you curse the country, you insult the citizens, but you want to lead the citizens. It's not different from what Azikiwe did between 38 and 48. We're going to get into it today. Shema the Brian was okay about mobile. It's not so different from what he did from 1938 to 1948. And then by 1951, he wanted to lead Yoruba people. The point is, nobody has actually told... Again, I don't say these things because I think one ethnic group is a problem, hate this group. That's not the point. The point is that Nigeria's history is deja vu. It keeps happening again and again. And it's because nobody has said, you know what happened? How do we make sure it doesn't repeat itself? You're literally playing that game. And in case you were not here when I was having that conversation, for 10 years, Zik went on this, I could call it a rampage, just criticizing. Number one, it was extolling the virtues of the Igbo, which is right. But it was doing it at the detriment or at the expense of other ethnic groups in Nigeria. What did he do? Very quick rundown. 1934, he visited Nigeria. He was 30 years old. He had finished school in the US, you know, and then he came around, gave rousing speeches in Lagos, right? Lagos Island. He was in Itafaji, he was in some schools, he spoke, he was an orator, people liked him. As a matter of fact, it was 1934, that year was the very first time that Awolowo Papa knew, or I mean saw Zik, because he was working as a reporter and he was sent there to cover the event. And he heard this guy, you know, just fantastic speaker. Anyway, they liked him as a speaker. And I think that's just about everything that there is to him. Somebody insulted me today saying that it was Zik of Africa. It's not Zik of Africa. Zik of Africa is a brand. Is a brand. It's like saying Nestle. Excuse me, please. I apologize. Zik of Africa is a brand name. It doesn't mean it's not real. You know, you can give yourself a name so you can have this reputation, but when your actions begin to contradict the claims you're making, the brand is dead. See? So if you say, I'm able to, let's say, let me look for an example. Let's say you call yourself Ildabachi. Let's say you call yourself Guinness World Record holder in Nigeria for cooking. That's what you call yourself. Doesn't mean you have even cooked anything. You can't even say what you have cooked. That's what you're calling yourself. I'm the greatest man on earth. Anybody can call themselves that. The real issue is when the rubber hits the road, when the rubber meets the road and we ask you to do something, it's called that you are not what you call yourself. So Zik went from Zik of Africa in his own lifetime, which is sad. From Zik of Africa to Zik of Nigeria, to Zik of the Eastern region, to Zik of Igbo people, to Zik of Onitsha, and then to just Zik. He left this word as just Zik. And I'm not saying this out of disrespect. There are books I could quote that actually split these things open. One book I should quickly quote is called Just Before Dawn by Kolio Motosho. You can see the analysis of how he degenerated from the quote-unquote Zik of Africa. I mean, he had issues with Kwame Nkrumah on this whole African thing. A man wrote a book in 1934 called Renaissance Africa. His name is Zik. The book talks about how we should forget our ethnicity. We are all Africans. Whether you are Fanti, or you are Igbo, or you are Hausa, or you are Yoruba, it doesn't matter. We are all Africans. 1934. By 1949, Zik is delivering a speech in Aba, 28th June 1949. It was a Saturday. And Zik said that the God of Africa has specially created the Igbo nation to lead the children of Africa from the bondage of the ages. They were the ones that were sent to lead all of us. The same person that said, forget about who you are. That's why when they come to you in 2025 and tell you, let's be like Rwanda, forget ethnicities. How many ethnicities are in Rwanda? Hutus and Tutsis. How many are in Nigeria? How many are in your states? Some states have 30. So let's forget about our differences. Zik was the one who told the Sadauna, let us forget our differences. And guess what the Sadauna said? By the way, one of the best statements by any politician in Nigeria. This statement I'm about to quote. When he said, let us forget our differences, that was Zik. The Sadauna said, let us understand our differences. You are a Christian from the eastern part of Nigeria. I am a Muslim from the northern part of Nigeria. I'm Fulani. Let us understand our differences. It's not about let's forget it. I'll tell you something. The person who tells you forget your differences is not forgetting his own. That's the brilliance. That's his own genius. That's his genius. If he tells you let us forget our differences, what he's really doing is this. And he did it, by the way. I would say what I said again. 34, let us forget our differences. We are all one Africa. 49, God has specially chosen his own ethnic group. I thought he forgot it in 34. God has specially chosen his own group to lead the rest of us. And who are we to say no to that? After all, God did it. superior to other groups. And that's why Awo said that he noticed that his goal was to make the Igbo people the master race in the 1940s. We're going to get to it today. Why did they say that? When Zik came to speak in 34 and people liked him, he went back to Ghana, worked, as a journalist, and then had some issues with government. We're not going to go into that because I'm not trying to disparage him. Had some issues in Ghana, returns to Nigeria in 37. By the time he returned, the Nigerian Youth Movement was already a fledgling organization, right? There was Lagos Youth Movement created in 1934. It metamorphosed into Nigerian Youth Movement in 1936. Zik comes along in 1937. There was going to be an election in 1937-38, and Zik helped, right? He would go on platforms and speak for the party and talk about how it was important to vote for NYM. And it wasn't the only one, by the way. There were four main speakers. I will call them a quartet. So you had H.O. Davis, Ernest Sekoli, Obasanjola Kishonya, and Zik himself. So the four of them will go around campaigning, and they won all 3 seats in the Lagos Legislative Council. I'll tell you again, all 3 seats in the Legislative Council, they won. All seats in the Lagos Town Council but one. They won all but one. And the only one they lost was the one that Obasanjola Kishonya contested in 1938. Now, they like that, right? It was a member of the Executive Council. Like I always say, it was a mistake. They made Zik a member of the Executive Committee in 1937. That was a huge mistake. Why? You shouldn't be made a leader based on talent. Talent is not enough. You lead with character, not with gifts. Just because you can speak English and speak Oyinbo does not mean you can lead people. And that showed eventually. It showed in NYM, it showed in NCNC, it showed in everything Zik did. But again, out of respect, he's an elderly person. But the reason I'm speaking like this is because the man dealt with the mindset of Yoruba people. And it was intentional. And what he did was insidious. And it still affects us till today. And that's why when people tell you that, oh, you guys are Yoruba people, Lagos Ibadan media, you are using propaganda. What they are telling you, again, I've said it before, things from the Southeast that comes to you as accusations, they're not accusations, they're confessions. They are not accusing you in reality. They are confessing to you what their forebears did. What Zik did was to use media to influence people, and he was using propaganda. And how did he get to do that? Because when he returned in 37, apart from helping with the party, NYM, so when they had the election against NNDP of about Macaulay, NYM won most seats. So Zik, with the other guys, helped a lot, right? But apart from doing that, he established a newspaper. The paper was called West African Pilots. By the way, for those who are just coming in, before you start telling me, forget about the past, let me tell you something. What I'm telling you right now, if you cannot find it in today's newspaper, then you can write what you typed the other time. I know who I'm talking to, okay? You can say this. What I'm telling us today is it's history, but it's also news, and it's sad. When you can look at what happened in 1937 and what's happening in 2026, and you find not just similarities, almost sameness. So it's not about stop living in the past. It's about understanding what happened in the past, learning lessons from it, so we don't repeat the mistakes. So if you don't like things like that, may God bless you on your way out. Where was I? I know the person, and the person knows me, or knows I'm talking to them. Okay. Now, Zik had this fantastic platform. I said before, Zik had the TikTok of 1937. Nigeria's TikTok, Facebook, Instagram all rolled into one. There were other papers before the emergence of West African Pilot. There was Nigerian Daily Times, there was Nigerian Daily Telegraph, there was Lagos Daily News. These papers were there, but Zik came with something that nobody else had seen, right? He had language, he used words, right? It was flamboyant, it was flowery, it was an orator who could speak, so it showed in his writing. And the way he reported news was different, and it was larger than life, right? The paper was great. Everybody wanted to be part of it. Even people left pensionable jobs in the civil service to work for Zik. So that's tell you how beautiful the paper was, and that's something to be celebrated. Now remember, I was a member of NYM, so everybody was happy, like, okay, one of our members had a paper that's so popular. And they made the second mistake, NYM people. The first one was making him a committee member just because he had skill. Talent is not enough, doesn't make you a good leader. That's one. Number two, They decided to shut down their own newspaper and use this paper to push the programs of the party. Big mistake. So they'll say things like, we don't really need to have service. It was called service at the time. We don't need to have service. Let's just use West African Pilot. So if you have any program or whatever, they'll use the paper. It was a huge mistake, and they didn't discover it until much later. And how did they discover? It was when they told him that they wanted to resuscitate the service and begin to publish, so that they have, they had it before he came along, and now that he's around, this thing is very commercial. You have a particular focus, which is fair, but want to also resuscitate the paper for the NYM, Nigerian Youth Movement. We had this session on the Nigerian Youth Movement. So if you go through our YouTube channel, Busui Oris, if you search for Busui Oris Nigerian Youth Movement, you see all the series we did on NYM. So what happened was that they said to start using their paper. Zik got very angry, and from that point onward, he began to work against the paper. He wrote against the person that was supposed to go around to get money for that paper. The person was H.O. Davis. Zik called him a simpleton in his own paper, West African Pilot, even though that same person was writing in West African Pilot against another person called Mr. Bates, who had some issues with Zik back in the day. But that's not today's topic. The point is, he now used that paper to essentially do something to the mind of the average young person, especially Yoruba people. Why? Because Lagos was the center of gravity. It was where everything, converged. So, before Azikiwe, people in Lagos, right, politicians in Lagos, they were fond of calling themselves Africans or Nigerians. Now, if you were here when we did this series on the evolution of Christianity in Yoruba land, we didn't finish that series, by the way, but we'll go back to it some other time. If you were here when we discussed it, you remember how we talked about how the evolution of Christianity in Yoruba land actually led in some way to the nationalist movement in Nigeria. And I could offer some books, but that's not the sub. So let's not change direction. But let me just tell you what happened. In the 1800s, the 1840s to be exact, there was a man called Thomas Birch Freeman. He had moved to Badagry. But apart from him, there were freed slaves, right? Yoruba people who had been in Sierra Leone, right? You know their story, how they got to Sierra Leone in the first place. Were in Freetown, decided to travel down to bring Christianity to their own people, and they would preach the gospel to them. They entered, they moved into Abeokuta, and they were in Lagos, they were in Badagry, but Abeokuta became their base, and then from there they went to other parts of Yoruba land. But there's the thing. In 1864, we had the very first African bishop in history. His name is Samuel Ajayi Crowther, right? But by the 1880s, it became very clear that the politics of the church was getting a bit racist, right? People started releasing doctrines, which I won't talk about today, doctrines that essentially makes the African inferior to the white, missionary. And don't forget that a lot of Yoruba people were actually the ones who brought by the way, I should say this, Yoruba people should remember this. Missionaries came to Yoruba land, it's true. But it might interest you to know that there are places that missionaries went, and before they got there, there was already Christianity there. And the only reason for that is because those freed slaves took Christianity to their own hometown on their own before the missionaries came. And that's why I say to people when they say, oh, Christians went with guns threatening people, it did not happen in Yoruba land. Unless, of course, you have any proof. Our own people were actually some of the first people that introduced Christianity to us. Of course, there were whites. I'm not saying they were whites. But there were also, those of us who wanted to preach the gospel. Anyway, the point I'm trying to make is that when they got tired of this old imperialist tilt to the gospel that was being preached in Yoruba land specifically, they began to push back. And if you read the book by J.F. Adeajayi, the book, I'm trying to remember the name, but I need to get you the name. Give me a second, I'll get you the name very quickly. I hope I can do it very fast. It's actually important because it's the 19th century something. There are two books. I want to call it just in case anybody here is interested. Give me a second. You're not going to believe the book that came up. Nah, not that one. I just mentioned 2 books that I think will help you understand this thing. 19th Century Origins of Nigerian Nationalism, right? And another book about Christian missions. Yes, I think it's Christian missions in Nigeria. Christian missions, found it. Christian mission in Nigeria, 1841 to 1891, by J.F. Ajayi. That's a very, very good book. If you want to understand the evolution of Christianity in Nigeria, particularly Yoruba land, I got here in the 1500s to Benin, to Warri, to Ile-Ife back then. And that's also supported by things you'll find in a book by, there's a book, I know where I am, I just want to tell you this. There's a book by Chief M.A. Fabumi. It's called Ife Shrines. There's another book by E.B. Dowu, Bolaji Dowu, Olodumare, God in Yoruba Belief, will tell you how 500 years ago there was Christianity in Ife before some things happened. But that's not today's topic. The point I'm trying to get to is this. Sorry, there's somebody just being a nuisance in the comment section. Like, you can actually hold yourself back. You don't have to be stupid every time you come here. Let's do this. 5 minutes. Take a break. God bless you. Like, you can comport yourself. Where were we? Nigerian Kimokale Kono. This is Garimi. Yes, Christian mission in Nigeria, 1841 to 1891 by J.F. Ajayi, and then the other paper is called 19th Century Origins of Nigerian Nationalism. So this is where I'm going. When that thing became, when they became tired of the whole thing, they began to push back, and J.F. Ajayi in this paper called it cultural activism. The Yoruba people were like, they became cultural activists. So they were Christians. They were not going to stop being Christians, but they wanted to assert their own identity as Yoruba people. Now, there's some that had happened before. Like, there was a reverend called Reverend White. By the way, don't get carried away by the name. James White is a Yoruba man. He was just one of those folks from Sierra Leone. He was ministering at Ota, but it was it was being overseen by Ajayi Crowther. He was the first person who started introducing Yoruba music into church, into liturgy. It was called Native Airs. So rather than just sing Oyinbo songs, they would sing Yoruba songs. But it wasn't something that everybody but it was there in Ota. By the time people began to push back against British imperialism, or even the Christians who were becoming racist, they began to sing those songs in our own language, right? They began to include our drums. So you had a group that broke away. If you read this book by J.D.Y. Peel, is on Aladura. There's a book on Aladura by J.D.Y. Peel, and he mentioned how those people began to, Aladura, a religious movement among the Yoruba by J.D.Y. Peel. They began to break out of the church. So you had the Baptist guys who broke up first in the 1800s, and then you had the United Native Church. I'm going somewhere. It's part of the whole thing. United Native Church, and then from there you had the African Church that broke away in 1901. So the first church, the African Church built their church in 1901, but they had, this things happened in the 1800s, so the 19th century. This pushback led to music, led to drumming in church, which you wouldn't have in CMS, because of course it's not part of English culture. And what they were saying basically is this: we're going to be Christians, but we're not going to be English. They stopped using Oyinbo names. Many of them began to revert to their Yoruba names, e.g. Mojolak Baby. They going back to their Yoruba names. They wanted to wear Yoruba clothes rather than wearing suit and tie, because back in the day they always wore suit and tie. In other words, they were trying to be British. By the way, there's a book I want to also recommend. We're going to have a session on that book this month by the grace of God. The book is called Educated Elites in Nigerian Society by E.A. Ayondele. There's a chapter there that they called The Deluded Hybrids. It was talking about the Saro who returned. They were neither black nor white. They were black in skin, but they were Oyinbo in their thinking. So these guys were saying, no more. We're not going to do that anymore. We're going to be Yoruba. We're going to be ourselves. Their work was what led to, like I said, the African Church and other things that came along much later. So that by 1921, you have somebody like Fela's grandfather recording the very first music in Nigeria, which also goes to talk to the clown who was saying Yoruba people are gatekeeping music industry. You didn't know anything about music in 1921 as far as recording was concerned. I mean, that's the truth, if you're really being serious. By the way, the song is called Ishe Oluwa. I'm sure you must have heard it. Ishe Oluwa Kolebajeo. Fela's grandfather recorded it in 1921. Fela's grandfather would write songs for Yoruba people in church to make sure that they were singing, not just English songs, that the song were also, they were using our own, I hope I don't get too complicated. It's called musical scale. So Yoruba musical scale is 5 notes. Do, re, mi, sol, la. So he would write songs and set it to that scale, and fantastic, man. And many of them like that. Why am I saying all of this? Because as they were pushing back, eventually some of them began to think in the direction of politics. So and that's why the very first party that was formed in the country, and the man who formed it, of course, is Ebert Macaulay. If you notice, is a grandson of Ajayi Crowther, one of the people what CMS was doing in the late 1800s. Okay, so you have people like was it the first party? I think it was the first party, right? In 1923, NNDP, Nigerian National Democratic Party. So all of this Turinchi, to tell you one thing, all this while, yes, they were Yoruba, but by the time they started talking about politics, the outlook was continental, not even just national. In terms of Nigeria, Nigeria was not even seen as a nation, to be honest, because there was no nation called Nigeria. There still isn't a nation called Nigeria. We have a country called Nigeria, just saying. So they looked at everything as Nigerian or African, Nigerian or African. So everything they accomplished, they say, oh, the African man did this, an African man has accomplished this thing. Why am I saying all of this thing? Because something changed in 1937, 38. Zik introduced something that nobody had ever done in media in Lagos. And what it did was to begin to put the face of Igbos. When I say the face, not necessarily, I'm not saying literally, I'm saying the word Igbo began to appear as an identity of a people when you are trying to acknowledge what they've done. So for instance, you see something like Igbo man to sail to the United States of America. To these nationalists, right, and their father, of course, Abat Macaulay, and his own fathers who were cultural activists, and the rest of the NYM who came along in 34, these guys just saw everything as African or Nigerian at the worst, so African Nigerian. Zik came along and started saying the Igbo man to do this, Igbo man to do that, Igbo man to do this, Igbo man to do that. Now, to you, you'd be like, boy, is this paper? Yes, but not when you're a member of the movement that advocates for the whole, and not when you claim to be Pan-African. That's the first sign that there's nothing like Zik of Africa. I'm not saying what happened in 96 when he died. I'm saying what happened in 38. Apart from the first book he published in 1934, which, to all intents and purposes, not just fiction, there's really nothing like One Africa. But where are we going with this? Instead of putting that in the face of people, Igbo did this, Igbo did that. I'm also doing a recap of what we did last time. And then, because he had the paper, he could report all the ills of society. And people began to see themselves or their ethnic group as folks who were decadent. Right? If you read, for instance, the letter that the internal memo that they created, it was called Protocol. Protocol by the Igbo National Caucus of 1964. They called Yoruba people decadent. It was something they were trying to pass across to us in our thinking, right? To damage the thinking of the average Yoruba person. If you open a newspaper, the most popular paper in town, right? And the first thing you are seeing is Igbo accomplishments. Igbo sailed to America. Igbo came back with a degree. By the way, if the Igbo had a tutu, which happened, by the way, 2 guys came from Cambridge. One had a tutu, the other had a 2-1. The one with the tutu had a front page 2-column headline. Excuse me. welcome to Nigeria. 1 second, please. Let's sing praise and worship while we wait. It didn't take that long. Hold on, please. How many people went to church where you have to sing praise and worship just to while they wait? Thank you very much for staying tuned. That was fast, but not probably not. Where were we? All right. So, people weren't used to seeing ethnic identity as the basis of, their accomplishments in the youth movement or in the nationalist struggle of the day. But the man who had the paper that everybody read decided to use his paper for that purpose. That's number one. Number two, a young person, of course, most of the political activities in Nigeria were actually limited to two places, Lagos and Calabar, right? So when you open the paper and then you see, okay, I was saying that two people came back from Cambridge, and on the front cover, there was the news of one person who returned, interestingly, the person had a tutu, but they should put it there, front cover, like big. The other person who returned with that same person had a true one, but they didn't talk about it. It took about 2 weeks of constant, harassment, so to speak, of where is this news of the person? I think his name is Father or it's far something. Where is the name of this person now? Eventually, after about 2 weeks, you now put it at the back of the page. So you now saw one small corner like that, so one small column. Or the person so essentially the reason the person didn't get to the front page was because it was Yoruba. If you were able, you get to the front page. Now, the crazy part is that same front page or the first few pages, you also see news of crimes. So if Yoruba people committed crimes, you find those things highlighted, right? And their names, of course, will be published. If a non-Yoruba person committed any crime, just so you don't confuse that person with being Igbo, the ethnicity of that person will be clearly stated. So if you see like Omorige, you're writing there, Benin or Edo. If you see like Efe Turi, you're right there, Robo. Like everything that Igbos did, you would not see their crimes in that paper. But that paper was the biggest paper in town. So what does that tell you as a Yoruba person? You open the paper, you see all the accomplishments of the Igbo. The ethnicity was clearly mentioned. This is a person who didn't care about ethnicity. We are all one Africa. Africa is one. You look at the paper, you see accomplishment, Igbo has done this, Igbo has done that, which is okay, by the way. Then you now open and then you see all the crimes that your people have committed. But you don't see any crime from Azikiwe's people. What do you begin to say to your children? You buy a gun. You are the only one committing crimes, because that's the paper that you see. See all the things that you are doing, and then when he's not Yoruba, he's Edo, he's Benin, he's Calabar, he's Ibibio. It cannot be Igbo. The idea basically was to tell you that there's a new sheriff in town, and the master of all races is his own ethnicity. That's where the idea of Igbo supremacy began to come into Nigeria. If you read any book, I assure you, any book by a Nigerian about the events of 1966, there is one phrase you will see in almost all the books. I can even say all the books, especially if they are not Igbo. If they are Igbo, you will not find it there. But every other book, whether the person is Hausa or Yoruba, or from the south, or from other parts of the north, or a Fulani person, or a TV, or a Idoma, yes, let's do it. Let's do a little. I'll tell you the phrase, and I'll mention some books. The phrase is Igbo domination. Any book that was published between the 1960s and 1980s about what happened in 66, you will see that phrase. It's a recurring pattern. You will notice it everywhere. The only people that never acknowledged it were the Igbos themselves. If you read My Command by Olusegun Obasanjo, it is there. If you read Educated Elite in Nigerian Society by E. Ayandele, it is there. If you read I say all. If you read Go On, the autobiography the biography of a soldier statesman by J. Sawelago, it is there. if you read Tragedy of Victory by Godwin Alabi-Sama, it is there. Just to mention a few. Someone said Elechi Amadi mentioned, yes, in Sunset in Biafra. It's a phrase people knew. And why did it, if you read Anthony Nauro, I love that man's speech. 1968, August 12, 1968, Addis Ababa. It is there. And the reason that thing is there is because it was uttered by an Igbo man in 1945. We are still talking about that girl, but like I said, when we listen to videos like that, when we watch videos like that, to be honest, it's an opportunity to show compassion because they raise these people on lies. An Igbo man made a statement in a club in Lagos, Island Club, Lagos. His name Charles Daji Onyema. He's an important person. He went on to become he was a lawyer and went on to represent the Eastern region in the parliament, in the legislative council. Because if you read the national legislative debates of 1950, his skinny is there. The things he said is there, are there. Here's what Onyema said in 1945. He said the Igbo domination of Nigeria is only a question of time. By the way, what happened as a result of that speech is what people call the first attack on Igbo people in the north. It is not justifiable. I'm not trying to justify it. But whenever you hear they've always hated our people, they attacked them in the north in 1945. The reason for that attack is what I'm telling you today. I'm not saying it is a justification, but I'm telling you, you should know what happened that caused something else to happen. Read Beckon to Serve by Shehu Shagari. What I'm saying right now, you find it there. Read Crisis and Conflict in Nigeria by H.M. Kedrin. You see it there. Anthony Nauro also said it. They went, in fact, it's Anthony Nauro. I don't want to read it now. They went around saying that, they were going to dominate the country. The Hausas and the other Northerners heard it in the north, and they just pounced on these people, and they already had issues on ground. So to now even utter it, they're going to dominate us in a matter of time. But that was coming from somewhere. He wasn't just talking. There's a reason he said what he said, and I'll tell you why. You see, Azikiwe addressed his own in 1938, pushing how, essentially teaching us. It's called social engineering, okay? Showing us how one group was superior. If you look at the cover, you see the good they've done. If you look at the cover and other pages, you see the evil of other groups. So you see your children, for instance, like, see, all you children. So young people, I'll connect it with Sidi Onyema. Just give me some time. Young people will read that paper and to themselves, they're like, we're inferior. It's right there in Awo's autobiography. The younger people started feeling like they were less. This was in the 1930s and 40s. If I tell you that it's happening right now, you tell me I'm lying. It's still happening. A young person who is a Yoruba person who, for the most part, thinks he has too much around him to worry his head about. He doesn't even know what's happening elsewhere. That's good and bad, by the way. He doesn't know. He lives in Ibadan. He's told that he lives in Brown Roof. It's the Brown Roof Republic. He's feeling bad about it. He has inferiority complex because they're saying he's living in a place where there's brown roof. Not knowing that the person that is talking to him in 2026, the roofs of their houses is thatched. Grass, palm front, not fishy, roof. But he doesn't know what's happening over there. So they tell him it's brown roof, and he wants to make excuses that, there's some parts of Ibadan that has. Let me tell you something. When you go to Ibadan, you see those brown roofs. Number one is sign of serious civilization. It's to tell you that decades ago, if not centuries, they were already using corrugated sheet when your parents were using leaves, which your parents still use in some parts. That's one. Number two, Ibadan is not brown roof. Brown roof is part of Ibadan. Ibadan is the largest city in West Africa. So what that means basically is that people don't have to pull down old structures. They can just go elsewhere and build. So people say things like, why don't they just pull down the old structures and build new ones? That's because there's land to build, which is something you may not understand considering where you're from. People can move to other parts and build. And that's why you have estates all across Ibadan. I'm from Ibadan, so this is usually where I am from Ife, but I was born and bred in Ibadan. So this thing, we need to be talking about this thing small, okay? You will find all kinds of estates. Go online and look for it, okay? Whether it's Kolapo Shola or Bodija or Alalubosa or Ring Road or Oluyole, whatever, or they are different. It's all over the place. But the point is, the Yoruba boy doesn't know that the person who is even talking to him, where the person is coming from, he's just shouting. When he's shouting, we have mansion, he's talking about one estate in Ibadan. All the mansions he's showing you is literally one estate in Ibadan. Forget Lagos. I'm not mentioning Lagos. Is one estate, and you're in Ibadan. You have like maybe what am I say? Dozens of estates, but you're feeling bad. Why? Because you don't know. Is what happened to your elders back then in the 30s and 40s. They didn't know where those people were coming from. Who were telling them that they were inferior in Yoruba land? They were engineered. You don't know, for instance, when people say, oh, our own place, we do our roads and everything. Your fathers do the same thing, but you don't understand, because the entire region of the Southeast, again, I'm not throwing any shades, just making some things clear, okay? The entire Southeast is about 29,000 square kilometers. Oyo State is 28,000 plus square kilometers. So essentially, the state Oyo is essentially the size of the entire southeastern region. So if they show you something in a particular town or a particular state in the southeast, it's literally like you looking at something in a ward or local government in Oyo State. But you don't know, therefore you feel inferior. And you have people, for instance, some preachers were saying, oh, you remember always saying rora, you should be like this. I'm like, what are you saying? You should be like who? People say things like, we really want to do business. Business and trade are not the same thing. There are three things we confuse in a lot in Nigeria. There's trade, there's business, there's commerce. Trade, business, commerce, and they are not the same. That you can buy and sell doesn't mean you're a businessman. Buying and selling makes you a trader, and there's nothing bad with it. There's nothing bad about it. Traders are important, but they're not businessmen or women. And you don't have to look outside your ethnicity as a Yoruba person to find examples of trading. Show Boshoma Alorini above the Jebu. There's no time Yoruba where you don't have not just traders but businessmen proper. Why am I saying this? To denigrate another group? No, just to remind you, Yoruba people, that you are not what you have been conditioned to think. When you have to look around and say, okay, and people do it in Nigeria. This ethnicity is known for this one. This one, they go to school. This one, they do business. This one, they do farming. Which one do you not do as a Yoruba person? Is it farming you don't do, or business? The women in Gbagi in Ibadan, the women in Labao, the women in Balogun Market, the ones in Tejosho, the men and women, the Yoruba people there, did they go to learn it in the Southeast? This thing is important because if we're not careful, you tend to, and you see the lot with young people, especially on social media, they buy into the narrative and they didn't know that they're being socially engineered. And here's the crazy part. When they eventually discover, if they're not properly told or taught, they now go to the extreme. They're the ones that will say what I said earlier, what I reported earlier about people, because once they say extreme, anything Igbo, they just curse them out because they're giving aura for aura, ati aura for aura. So you're Yoruba, your fathers and mothers started trading across Africa in the 5th century AD. I'll say that slowly. 5th, that's 400s AD. (400 AD). That was around the time they were having the Council of Nicaea, where the Nicene Creed was put together in church history. That was around 300 and something. That's just about less than a century apart. So you don't have anything to pick from your parents. You have to look around Nigeria and say, okay, which group is trading? There's nothing bad in learning from other groups, just to be clear. But that thing that makes you reduce yourself and self-deprecate and say, I don't have anything, I have to go and look there, is not right. I think I had 1 second, please. Anyway, back to what we're saying. Now that I kept pushing that, the young mind started thinking in a very funny way. That was in 38. Now, 2 years prior, the Igbos began to have their own unions. Now, I said this the other day. The first tribal group in Nigeria's history is Ibibio. It was 1928. The Igbos started having their own groups in 1936 in Lagos, in Calabar. And then in 1944, so Zigzag is done in 37. I started pushing the news in 38. By 1940, everybody knew that we were done for Yoruba land. And that caused some other things. You'll find in that video on Nigerian Youth Movement to see what happened in the 1940s. We're going to get to 48 eventually. By the way, all this I'm saying, I think I'm mentioning sources a bit so you can always check, because it's important. Don't just take my word for it. And I'm not going to tell you, go and verify. You can't verify without source. Anyway, where was I? By 1944, this was around the time of the Second World War, the Igbo decided to say, you know what, all these small groups that we have all over the place, let's have something called the Igbo Federal Union. We're going to bring everybody together. We're going to be focused on educating our people, taking care of the schools, which sounds nice, right? Educating our people, fighting for our rights, which sounds very interesting. And then they even had a plan to create an Igbo National Bank in 1944. If you read this book called Second World War and Politics in Nigeria by G.O. Olusoya. If we have time, I'm going to read it. But I'm mentioning it's like, so in case you want to look for where I'm getting all these things from. 44. When they brought the group together in 1944, they then had a group called the Igbo National Caucus. Right? And that group came up with a plan. If you want to know the details, please look for 20-year Igbo plan on our YouTube channel, Busui Oris, 20-year Igbo plan for Nigeria. The plan was that from 1944, between 44 and 64, they were going to do everything in order to do something to perpetually rule the federation. Two books I'm going to quickly read. You've done a lot. That's a lot for a recap, isn't it? So I don't have to read all those other things. Cool. So let's start with Second World War and Politics in Nigeria by G.O. Olusoya. This tendency on the part of the Igbos to group together was not only observed by non-Igbos but by Igbos themselves. Let me pause to say something. If you read, I always say if you read. It's not. I'm not trying to flaunt. I'm just trying to explain to you that what I'm saying, I didn't pluck it. Okay, so this is not about I read more than anybody. There are many books to read. We're all trying. Now small. But so it's not like there are many books I even bought that I've not read. So all of us are just learning. So don't think that I'm saying if you read as though I'm on book. Okay, back to what we're discussing. If you read the book by Ẹkáàbọ was published in 1983, The Trouble with Nigeria. He mentioned in that book that Igbos didn't used to do anything together. That is Yoruba people that used to say that it's other Nigerians that used to say that they used to band themselves together. In other words, that they were individualistic, they had no common anything. He was lying. Now, somebody reached out to me earlier today on Twitter and said Professor Lumumba said something about Zik, calling him Zik of Africa. Well, Lumumba also said some things about Nigeria based on the book that Ẹkáàbọ wrote, and he quoted that book. And that's the crazy thing. Your elders destroyed the image of Nigeria. The children are doing the exact same thing. They look for the worst thing in the country and then they push it out. One of these days we're going to discuss that book. Where I'm going is this. This man is actually countering what he said, and there are other books to counter it, saying that there's a tendency of the Igbos to group together. And there's nothing wrong with it if you understand the fact that for the most part, they are another word, settlers in other people's lands. If you move a lot, it's natural for you to want to group together, to come together as a group, right? So that you can, it helps you remember home. You have stories to tell. You can do things back at home. You can also help each other like it's normal. But this one's took it beyond the normal. So let's read a few more things here. This tendency on the part of the Igbos to group together was not only observed by non-Igbos but by Igbos themselves. The pilots tended to rejoice in what is described as the quote-unquote unqualified unanimity and mental compactness of the Igbos. Guys, give me a second, please. I'll take it again. This tendency, again, I'm reading the book by G. Olusonya. It's called the Second World War and the Politics in Nigeria. This tendency on the part of the Igbos to group together was not only observed by non-Igbos but by Igbos themselves. The pilots tended to rejoice. I don't take whiskey, thank you very much. The pilots tended to rejoice in what is described as the quote-unquote unqualified unanimity and mental compactness of the Igbos. And in fact, that, quote, Igbos possess a sense of cohesion and are great hero worshippers, end of quote. This is not a trait that endears one group to another. This mutual suspicion and hostility was further exacerbated by the formation of Igbo and Yoruba cultural organizations, the Igbo National Union and the Egbe Omodudua, respectively. In 1944, the various Igbo unions throughout the country were organized into a pan-Igbo national organization, the Igbo Federal Union, whose declared objective was the raising of funds to build and maintain secondary schools throughout the Igbo area of the country. The union composed the national anthem and went as far as advocating the founding of a national bank of Igbo land. And in 1944, when the NCNC was formed, the Igbo Federal Union, with all the sub-tribal associations, became the strongest supporter of that organization because, as an Igbo scholar put it, quote, Azikiwe was not only an Igbo, but an idol of the Igbos as a whole, end of quote. I'll come back to this quote. So you have an idea what they did in 44. There's nothing bad in this, though. That all the small groups put themselves together and call themselves the Igbo Federal Union. There's nothing bad in that. But here's where you begin to see that there's a sinister plan. I'm going to read a book called The Educated Elite in Nigerian Society by E.A. Anyodele. Excuse me. Let me read something to you. Not long after the end of the Second World, precisely in 1948, okay, let me go back just a bit. Okay, let's get into this way. As pointed out earlier, the coalition government of 1959 gave a grand opportunity to the Igbo to use federal government resources to entrench themselves in key positions and to intensify their education training. It was an opportunity which the Igbo National Caucus, you hear a lot about them soon, the Igbo National Caucus, formed not long after the end of the Second World War, would not wish to miss. Its aim was summarized in a moment of indiscretion by Sidi Oyema. So, remember what I said about Sidi Oyema? We are back to that thing now. This is what Sidi Oyema said. So he had this, it was called a moment of indiscretion by Sidi Oyema in the famous utterance at the Island Club, Lagos, that the domination of Nigeria by the Igbo is only a question of time. Indeed, the caucus fixed 1964 as the target date, and later they changed to 1969, quote, for our perpetual rule of the Federation. Here's where I'm going. When the Igbo groups banded together in 1944, which is great, right? One of their stated objectives was to perpetually rule the Federation. Not to have a president, not to work with any other ethnicity to build Nigeria. If you read the Egbe Omodudua Pact, Egbe Omodudua objectives, you'll see what their own objectives were. And in this series, we're going to get there. What they wanted was to perpetually rule the Federation. When was this? 1944, 16 whole years before independence. And they had a 20-year plan. They were going to accomplish that in 20 years by 1964, which was why what happened in 63, 64, 65, 66 actually happened. To understand more, please watch the video, the Igbo 20-year plan for Nigeria. It's on my YouTube channel. So what does this tell us? It tells us that a person and a group that talks about one Africa, forget differences, will come along in 38. I mean, they published a book in 34. Will come along in 38 to 37, 38 to begin to push his ethnicity above every other group that's supposed to have forgotten their ethnicities. So let us all forget our differences. The same Zik said it too. Let us all forget our differences. So all of you forget, but me, I'm an Igbo man. Okay? And that was by 38. By 38, we started seeing that they were the model ethnic group in Nigeria. So everybody started noticing there's a master race in town. There's a supreme group, like a superior group, so to speak. Now, by 1944, by 1936, this group had, created small groups all across across some parts of Nigeria, starting 36, and then all the way in other parts of Nigeria up until in the 1940s. Then in 44, they came together and formed the Igbo Federal Union. And in that same year, they planned to rule Nigeria perpetually. Then in 45, one of their leaders made that statement: the domination of Nigeria by the Igbo is only a question of time. By the way, I said earlier, it's important to repeat, that's the statement that caused the Wala in the north in 1945. People were killed. It's unfortunate, but that's why that happened. Because those people felt threatened. But let me also say that, to his credit, by 1950, the same man, Oyema, was the one pushing for the Northerners to have 50% of the seats in Parliament, and they got it. By the way, if you have ever been angry about the fact that the North has more seats in Parliament today, it was because of what Oyema did in 1950. It was not just Oyema, it was because of what Eastern Region, because all the representatives of Eastern Region voted for the North to have 50% of the seats, even though they were a third of the regions. We had 3 regions. One wanted 50% of the seats. The West said no, the East said yes. Northerners are not perfect people, but every time you insult them, please remember, they didn't do all these things because they had all that power. They got some help. They had some help, and the help they had came from some parts of the country. So if you're angry, why did they have more seats in Lincoln? Let's forget history. You can't forget history. You have to know where it's coming from. So I just said that to say that Oyema did them something good 5 years later. So back to 45. Oyema said that. Then in 49, I said earlier, Azikiwe was in Aba in June for Igbo Congress. And he made the statement that the God of Africa had specially created the Igbo nation to lead the children of Africa from the bondage of the ages. When was this? 1949. Put your finger on that page in case you are reading. I want to take you back to what happened in 48. I mentioned 44, 45. Let's get to 48. I'm glad we got to 48 today. Now, before we talk about 48, while Oyema was saying what he was saying in 45, and while the Igbos were applying what they were applying in 44, there was a Yoruba man who was trying to get to uni, University of London, in 1944. His name was Awolowo. Chief Obafemi Awolowo was trying to get to school. And he succeeded. It's okay. It's okay. Excuse me. He succeeded. And then in 1945, he decided to accomplish a particular task that he had in mind for a bit. At this point, let's go to his book. let's go to his book, Awo, the autobiography of Chief Obafemi Awolowo. Awo, Awolowo. Obafemi Awolowo. So we're about to get into what happened in 40. We've been trying to get to that for some time now. This is a good, you know what, let's just use this other one. Okay. Great, I'm here. All right, so I'm reading Awo, or Awo, whichever one you want to call it, the autobiography of Chief Obafemi Awolowo. This book was published in 1960, and it's a good read. You should get it. If you want to get a copy, please go to Redomi Books on Telegram, and you get this book and many more. All right, let's get into this. I'll read some things before I read that one to give us context. It says here, events subsequent to 1942 only helped to fortify rather than weaken my stand. In 1943, the Igbo Federal Union was launched, and Dr. Azikiwe himself was not only a prominent member of it, but also its president. Both the Ibibio Union, now known as Ibibio State Union, and the Igbo Federal Union, now known as Igbo State Union, were able to arouse among their respective members such enthusiasm and selfless devotion as had never before been known in the country. I welcome this phenomenon as a worthy means to a great end. If the members of each ethnic group feel happy among themselves, if they are free within prescribed limits to order their own lives and advance their culture as they like, and if the solidarity and devotion exhibited within their ranks can be sublimated to the cause of the nation, the federal unity of Nigeria would have been assured. But whilst there was an Ibibio Union and an Igbo Federal Union, there was no comparable, all-embracing union for the Yorubas. Since the strength of a chain is that of the weakest link, I thought it would be in the interest of the federal unity of Nigeria if one was founded. The Yorubas were a highly progressive but badly disunited group. They paid lip service to a spiritual union and affinity in a common ancestor, Oduduwa. But in all their long history, they had waged wars against one another. When the Portuguese and the British had visited their coast in the course of their slave trade, the Yorubas had shown no qualm of conscience in conducting violent and merciless slave raids on one another. These intertribal wars and slave raids had come to an end under the so-called Pax Britannica. But the mutual hatred and acerbity which were attendant on them lingered. Furthermore, the propaganda of Dr. Azikiwe was already having a deleterious effect on a once dynamic group. The Yorubas now indulge in mutual recrimination and condemnation. The younger elements thought that the Yorubas were inferior to the go-ahead Igbo people, and that whatever might be their past glories, they had become effete and decadent. To cap it all, it was freely bandied about that the Yorubas were no longer capable of leadership in any sphere of life. I thought that it was in the best interest of Nigeria that the Yorubas should not be reduced to a state of impotence, into which they were fast degenerating. They had something which was all their own to contribute to the common pool of Nigerian nationalism and nationhood. I decided therefore to do all in my power to infuse solidarity into the disjointed tribes that constitute the Yoruba ethnic group, to raise their morale, to rehabilitate their self-respect, and to imbue them with the confidence that they are an important factor in the forging of the federal unity of Nigeria. So I'm going to jump from there now to what he then did. On leaving the shores of Nigeria in August 1944, I resolved that I would have nothing to do with politics until I had finished my studies and made some money. I also resolved that before I again entered into politics, I would see to it that the Yorubas evolved an ethnic solidarity among themselves, just as the Ibibios and the Igbos had done, in order to ensure a strong and harmonious federal union among the peoples of Nigeria. In less than a year after I reached the United Kingdom, I set to work to translate my ideas into realities. A group of Yorubas, mostly students, Dr. Oni Akirele, Chief Abiodun Akirele, barrister at law and member of the House of Representatives, Mr. Kintola Williams, chartered accountant, Chief Ayotunde Rosiji, Federal Secretary of the Action Group, and member of the House of Representatives, and others, and I founded the Yoruba organization in London named the Ẹkáàbọ Oòduà, meaning a society of the descendants of Oòduà. Let me stop here to just say something. So, remember, Yoruba people were not the first to have an ethnic association. If you read, excuse me. I talked about an emergency that will require my attention, so we're going to round up very soon, but this is very important. If you read Anthony Enauro's speech in 1968, he mentioned, and rightly so, that the very first ethnic organization to have a cultural union, a cultural group, was the Ibibio, and I mentioned it earlier, right? So it wasn't the Yoruba. But you see, after what happened between 43 and 44, every group in Nigeria every ethnic group in Nigeria began to look for ways to have their own cultural organization as well. Why? Because of the reasons for the particular cultural organization that the Igbos had created. Again, like I always say, this is not to disparage the Igbo people. It's what it is. They're not. People felt threatened. Give me a second. I'd like to read that. I'll come back to our book, but I want to make sure that we're all together. We're all, moving together. Give me a second. This is Anthony Enauro's speech at Addis Ababa, 12th August 1968. Good. I told you about that phrase, Igbo domination. You find it in many books that were published between 1960s and 1980s that talk about the war or the coup. You find it in all the books except Igbo books. Let me come to you here. In 1945, a prominent Igbo lawyer, Charles Onyema, a member of this is the same person that we read in the other book. So say no be said they make them up. In 1945, let's continue. In 1945, a prominent Igbo lawyer, Charles Onyema, a member of the Central Legislative Council, said in a public statement in Lagos that the Igbo domination of Nigeria was only a matter of time. This statement sparked off attacks on Igbos in other parts of Nigeria. This statement intensified the growth of ethnic and cultural unions throughout Nigeria. No, let's go back a bit. We'll come back to that. I just found what I was looking for. I apologize. The first ethnic cultural organization, the Ibibio Union, was born at this time. At a time, that was in the 1920s. Others sprang up, but like the Igbo Union, became more political in character than the pioneer Ibibio Union. Unfortunately, Sir Arthur Richards ignored the diversity of the cultures and peoples of Nigeria, and a federation of 3 massive regions was imposed on Nigerians on 2nd August 1946, when the Richards Constitution was promulgated. Agitation for ethnic group self-determination and cultural sovereignty grew in the late 1940s. Events fed the flames of agitation. In 1945, a prominent Igbo lawyer, Charles Onyema, a member of the Central Legislative Council, said in a public statement in Lagos that the Igbo domination of Nigeria was only a matter of time. This statement sparked off attacks on Igbos in other parts of Nigeria. This statement intensified the growth. This is where I'm going. This statement intensified the growth of ethnic and cultural unions throughout Nigeria. There sprang up the Edo Union, the Calabar Improvement League, the Ẹkáàbọ Oòduà, the Ijaw Progressive Union, and so on. The fear of domination of the rest of Nigeria by any one ethnic group reinforced the search for a form of government in Nigeria which would prevent it. In 1947, Chief Obafemi Awolowo, a Yoruba, in his book Path to Nigerian Freedom, suggested the division of Nigeria into 40 states with cultural and linguistic affinity as the basis of division, something that Easterners hated. So, why did I read that page? Because I want to tell you that around that time, I think Urobo was around 1938. There's another book on that. We're not going to open it. But many groups began to pop up in the 40s when they noticed what was going on from the Igbo side. So the Yoruba people did not have any union that, like the Ibibio Union or the Igbo Union. 1 second, please. Sorry, guys. I'm a bit distracted because of. Don't worry, there's some things that are good things by the grace of God. Where was I? I was said here, the Ibibios had a union, the Igbos had a union, Yorubas did not have. And they were able to band themselves together. So in his own mind, Yoruba should also have something like that. Okay? But what he did not mention is what Anthony Nauro is mentioning. That the push for domination became very glaring. So 44, there was a plan to dominate Nigeria perpetually. 45, Onyema said it in public, which led to Igbos being killed in different parts. But that was one of the reasons for people pushing to now have their own cultural organizations, so that they will not be scattered everywhere, while another group that's organized themselves are now able to easily dominate other people. It's just common sense, right? So I always said he decided that once it got to the UK, they're going to have their own. Was going to create their own Yoruba union. So he worked with some people like Oni Akerele, Abejo Akerele, Akintola Williams, Sondero CG, and so on and so forth. So they decided going to do it. We're not going to read everything. In view of the hostility and controversy which had marked the birth of the Egbe Modudua and of the general misunderstanding which has existed ever since about the real intentions of this organization, I reproduce here in full the aims of the Egbe and its method of approach as set out in its first constitution, which was drafted by me with the collaboration of one of its founders. So here, we've done a session on this before. That's why I don't want to read everything. It talks about the objectives of Egbe Modudua. I'll just summarize. They had two headings, so to speak. One was Yoruba land, the other one was Nigeria. For Yoruba land, they wanted to study the political problem of Yoruba people, right? They want to stop out, they want to combat the disintegrating forces of tribalism that's within the Yoruba ethnic nation. Why? Because we were fighting ourselves not too long before that. We had, Ibadan, Ijebu. Everybody always say Ijebu Shekiniko, Ibadan Shekiniko. That came from all those wars. There was the 1892 Imagbon War. There was the Kiriji War that happened before then. So this was going to unite everybody. Then they were going to stamp out discrimination within the group and against minorities, and generally infuse the idea of a single nationality throughout the region. They're going to study economic resources. They're going to promote social welfare in Yoruba land. They're going to help stamp out superstition and ignorance and spread the knowledge of medical relief and stimulate the provision of hospitals, maternity homes, and such like amenities. They're going to plan for the improvement of the educational facilities, both in content and extent. And to also, by the way, this is quite nice, to explore the means of introducing mass education promptly and efficiently, and to foster the study of Yoruba language, culture, and history. This was in 1945. Therefore, Nigeria, there are two objectives. Number one, to cooperate in the fullest measure with the other regions to see that the aims set out in A, that's for Yoruba people, are applied to the whole country. In other words, what we want for ourselves, we want for everybody. This is our heritage as Yoruba people. This is Papa's legacy. Number two, to aid and encourage similar groups in other regions in every way possible to achieve these ideals. In other words, Yoruba people will do it, and then we want to work with others to also accomplish the same thing across Nigeria. Put that beside the person who wants to perpetually rule the country and dominate the country. It's the person whose fathers planned to dominate the country and started dominating it, by the way, before they were cut to size. Is the one that calls you tribalist, and you are listening. Okay. So they had methods of approach, how they were going to study with with research, lectures, paper reading, discussion, and then how they're going to issue magazines. They're going to encourage Ẹgbẹ́ Modùduwà, being set up in different parts of Yoruba land and so on and so forth. All right. So all of that is just to give you an idea of what the plan was. Now let's move on. Before the Ẹgbẹ́ was founded in London in 1945, there was already a 2-year-old branch of the Igbo Federal Union there. What did I say? 2-year-old branch of the Igbo Federal Union was already in the UK. Even so, the reaction of practically all the students from the eastern region and of some from the western region to the formation of the Ẹgbẹ́ was a hostile one. Being the most prominent among the founders, I was singled out for attack. I was accused of being tribalistic and of having a design to wreck the unity of Nigeria. Is this not what you hear today? You speak, you are tribalistic. Awo was accused of being tribalistic for establishing Ẹgbẹ́ Modùduwà by a people that had Igbo Federal Union. Think about it for a second. Let it sink in. It's the same thing. You are a Yoruba person voting Tinubu, you are a tribalist, but I'm Igbo person voting for Peter Obi is because of competence. Forget cognitive dissonance, is stupidity. And you, the Yoruba young person, are like, oh, what is the point? Ko ni point. Johnny point. So you are in London, you've been in Igbo Federal Union since 1943. You now heard that your Yoruba person or Yoruba group, they are coming together to also create something. You then say they are tribalistic, but you are not tribalistic for having Igbo Federal Union. And guess what? This is the craziest part. There were Yoruba people that were supporting the Igbos in London, calling our tribalistic. Just like you have some interesting Yoruba characters also supporting people that call you tribalists today in 2026. Nothing much has changed. Nothing much has changed. In the face of the aims and objects of the Ẹgbẹ́, or objectives, which were widely circulated among Nigerian students in the United Kingdom, these accusations did not make any sense to me. In other words, all the objectives that I spoke about earlier, they had printed it and distributed it amongst Nigerian, forget Yoruba, all Nigerian students to see what the plan was for the group they were starting. They gave it to everybody, and even with that, they still called them tribalists. The crazy part is the fact that they actually had their own union. We've not gotten to 48 yet. We may not get to 48 today, but we have to do 45 before we go to 48. Okay? So they had circulated the papers and the stuff and the objectives, yet they were called tribalists. So it says these accusations. So it says, in the face of the aims and objectives of the Ẹgbẹ́, which was widely circulated among Nigerian students in the United Kingdom, these accusations did not make any sense to me. All the same, I seized every opportunity that offered itself to explain these aims and objectives to my detractors. The executive committee of the Ẹgbẹ́ also decided to hold a joint meeting with the executive committee of the London branch of the Igbo Federal Union, with a view to making to the latter a full explanation of what the Ẹgbẹ́ stood for, and to driving the point home that the Ẹgbẹ́ was purely and simply the Yoruba counterpart of the Igbo Federal Union. In other words, they are having to explain themselves. We're going to have a meeting. We are going to do. I will sit on this side. You Igbo Federal Union, you sit on that side. We will now explain to you that we are what we are really trying to do. That cannot happen again. Why did I explain myself to you? When you were doing your Igbo Federal Union, did you call me? Did you tell me anything? Did you owe me any explanation? Of course you didn't. What makes you think I owe you any? We love everybody. We love to, but at some point you have to understand the fact that this thing, and by the way, it is still the same thing happening. And I'm not saying this so that you can say, oh, these people are bad people. That's not the point. The point is that, number one, when you see a repeat of certain actions, you should ask yourself, how did my fathers take care of this kind of thing when they were alive? And then you can learn something from how they responded. That's the point of history, especially when you're experiencing deja vu on a daily basis in Nigeria. But this one they did, me, I will not do shall to sit you down and be explaining to you why I'm doing what I'm doing. Who are you? But well, at the time, I guess they were the first set, so they had to experience that for us to understand that it's not necessary. But let's read what happened. The executive committee of the Egbe also decided to hold a joint meeting with the executive committee of the London branch of the Igbo Federal Union, with a view to making to the latter a full, sorry about that. I'm a bit distracted today, but it's for the best. Let's read again. The executive committee of the Egbe also decided to hold a joint meeting with the executive committee of the London branch of the Igbo Federal Union, with a view to making to the latter a full explanation of what the Egbe stood for, and to driving the point home that the Egbe was purely and simply the Yoruba counterpart. Please give me a second. Let's chill for also fix this thing. Sorry about that. Our folks on YouTube are enjoying this session. Thank you for being here. Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, and right here on TikTok. Thank you very much. We love the fragrance of you. Give me a second, please. I'm trying to rearrange something, please. All right. Shall we continue? So we're going to have a meeting to explain to them what the plan of the Yoruba people, what the plans were, as though they had not given to them free before. Anyway, let's read what Papa did. I made contact with the chairman of the Igbo Federal Union, Mr. Chuba Ikpazu, a law student, through my friend Mr. G on UK, another law student, and a date for a meeting between the committees was fixed. Somehow, about 24 hours before the time of the meeting, Mr. Ikpazu sent a message to say that he and his officers had another important engagement which made it impossible for them to attend the proposed meeting. He promised to let us have another date. He was unable to fulfill this promise before we all returned home to Nigeria. How brilliant, how thoughtful of Awo. He was unable to fulfill this promise. It was not a promise. It was an acknowledgement of stupidity. Like, why are we asking them to explain themselves? Why do they even have to explain anything to us? So 24 hours before that meeting, they said, we're going to give you another date. That was 1945. This is 2027 or 2026. Who knows? Maybe it will happen before 2027. Let's go on. Okay, I'm going to just jump all these parts to go. Maybe we'll get to 48. I think we might get to 48 today. Some parts of it will go deeper on Wednesday. But here's the point. What you see here is, like I said earlier, I'm trying to do something. What you see here is essentially what you're still seeing today. So the lesson from this, number one, is that don't go around trying to explain yourself to people because they don't really care for your explanation. What you want to do is be committed to your plan as a people or as a group, rather than having to explain yourself to people who they're not worthy of it. Now, what then happened was that in 47, the Ẹkáàbọ Oòduà was established in Ife, right? Then in 48, it was established in Lagos by a group of outstanding Yoruba leaders. Excuse me. Where were we? It was established by a group of, according to Awo, a group of outstanding Yoruba leaders: Sadi Emalakija, Dr. Akinola Maja, Sakofo Abayomi, Chief Bode Thomas, Chief H.O. Davis, Dr. Akani Doherty, and others too numerous to mention were among the foundation members. I was jubilant to read this report, and I quickly sent a telegram of felicitations to the Lagos founders of the Ẹgbẹ́. I also took immediate steps to inaugurate a branch in Ibadan. And they also came up with their own objectives, which was similar, of course, to what they already had in 1945. But here's where it gets interesting. So, by the way, let's just quickly read what their own objectives were in 48. Number one, they pledged to encourage, the Ẹgbẹ́ pledged itself to encourage, especially by means of scholarship awards by the society, the pursuit of secondary and university education among Yoruba boys and girls. Number two, to recognize and maintain the monarchical and other similar institutions of Yoruba land, to plan for their complete enlightenment and democratization. And three, to strive earnestly to cooperate with other ethnical associations in matters of common interest to all Nigerians, so as thereby to attain to unity in federation. Hey, John Trollo, if you are, no sane person would have a problem with this. As a question, no sane person would have a problem with these objectives. Educate your young people, democratize your traditional institutions, cooperate with other groups in Nigeria. What's the problem with that? I thought you would not ask that question. The reaction of Dr. Azikiwe and all his supporters to the newly formed Ẹgbẹ́ was violence beyond compare. All the leaders of the Ẹgbẹ́ were vilified in Dr. Azikiwe's newspapers. The high watermark of the campaign was reached in the following extracts from an editorial article in the Pilot of September 8, 1948. This is what Zik wrote in his paper in 1948. Again, that paper has been popular for 14 years at this point. No, for 11 years at this point, starting in 1937. Someone says exactly what you are doing, Busui. Thank you very much. That's exactly what we're trying to do. Encourage our young. It is well. All we're trying to do right now, encourage our young people, talk about politics, see how you can collaborate with other groups. But no, the point is not the point is not that you are at the same level. The point is not that the point is not equality. See, there are certain people that the definition of fairness is not equality, it's supremacy. If they're not talking about jegaba, if they are not dominating you, that's not fair. For them to consider what's happening fair, they have to be dominating. So when you say let's share this, let's do this, let's do that, no. The idea is for you to let them be over the whole thing. Why do I say that? Let's read what Azikiwe wrote. What the pilot, what they published in September 1940. This was September 8, 1948, in his paper. But now that the Ẹgbẹ́ has made it clear that its battle is not really against Dr. Azikiwe personally, why would they be against you as a person? What's your business with what we are doing as Yoruba people? They used this in last election, by the way. Now that the Ẹgbẹ́ has made it clear that its battle is not really against Dr. Azikiwe personally, and even against Igbos as a group, but against the aspirations of the 27 million Nigerians backing up the NCNC, The time has come for real action. Henceforth, the cry must be one of battle against the Ẹgbẹ́ Ọmọ Oòduà, its leaders at home and abroad, uphill and downdale, in the streets of Nigeria and in the residence of its advocates. The Ẹgbẹ́ Ọmọ Oòduà is the enemy of Nigeria. It must be crushed to the earth. There is no going back until the fascist organization of Sade Alakija has been dismembered. You know, the craziest part of this nonsense is the fact that Azikiwe was publishing this nonsense in Yoruba land. He was living in Yoruba land. He was living in Yoruba land and then telling Yoruba people they had no rights to have an organization. He said the organization must be crushed to the earth. He called it a fascist organization. He said they were against the 27 million people supporting NCNC. It was not even a political party. It was a cultural organization. You know the craziest part? At this particular point in time, Zik was the president of Igbo Federal Union. When we come on Wednesday, we're going to start here and then we'll go into the Lagos press war. Because what they wrote here, Yoruba people responded though. Yoruba people responded in 1948. That was the first time, after waiting for a decade, that Yoruba people got to respond. And I'm saying that what happened in 48 is what was happening in 2020. I mean, started in 2023, by the way. But we didn't really speak until around last year, 2024. 2024, yeah, that's when we really began to speak. And the reason we didn't speak since 1970 was because of the war. It was compassion. But people take compassion for weakness. People put propaganda from 1938. Yoruba began to respond in 1940. We're going to read what we responded, how we responded when we come on Wednesday. There's some books I'm going to bring. We're going to read together. The point is, again, not to say that we hate one group. We are saying that what happened is happening again. And we've got to be smart. When the leader of a cultural organization is calling another organization a fascist organization while living in that organization's homeland. You know the saddest part? Some Yoruba people supported him. They even went as far as creating a parallel Yoruba organization called Yoruba Federal Union, established by Zik. You heard me right. And by the way, we always have, if you are on TikTok and you are seeing retards in the comment section, people like Steve and the other bunch of never-do-wells, it comes with the territory. We attract sensible people. We also attract fools. But when they come, we mute them. Someone said, what's your response? That's on Wednesday. I promise I'm going to get there on Wednesday. But I'm just giving you this thing where I told you the other day, 2022, somebody came and said, what's your name? I think the person's name is maybe Bayo or something. The person is voting Tinubu. And this clown said, you're a tribalist. And I said, your name is, this is what I said. This was 2022. I said, you're a maker. You are voting Peter Obi. And you have the guts to call Bayo a tribalist and bigot for voting Tinubu. I said, do you not think it would be better if Femi was the one telling Bayo that he was a bigot rather than you? The point is, we are used to taking things, but it's important for us. I mean, I'm not saying fight anybody, I'm not saying hate anybody, but I'm saying you've got to know how to respond. When a person is gaslighting you in your home, you live in Lagos, you drink Lagos water, you breathe Lagos air, then you have a problem with Lagos people having their own association for Yoruba people, but you are the president of Igbo people while living in Lagos. Is that not demonic? How did we get here? Today we've been discussing news, Azikiwe and Igbo supremacy, and I listened to that young girl, who I'm very sorry for, pour that venom and talk about how they were hated, they will never become president. From my ears, from my mouth to God's ears. Anyway, do I want Igbo to become president? I don't have any I don't have any goal or dream for any ethnic group in Nigeria to be president. That's the truth. Because whatever I want for Igbos, I want for Tiv, I want for Idoma, I want for Ajara, I want for Angas, I want for Ibibio, I want for everybody. So it's a desire that I want for everybody to do well and to represent Nigeria at the highest. Igbos have done something that Ibibios have not even done. So why should I be wishing Igbos to become president when Ibibios have not been president? When Idomas have not been president? I want anybody in Nigeria. Politicians know how to play the game. If they don't play it well, they don't win. And they don't win, it's not because of ethnicity. There are other things. On Wednesday, we're going to go on to discuss Lagos press war. People are saying, tell me what it said. I want to be able to explain it, not just, breeze over it. We're going to really explain it. What happened in 1948? What did the Igbos say? What was the response? How should we respond going forward? But let me just say it this way. Someone says, I'm sure you realize that Tinubu never won the 2023 elections for sure, but for Yakub Mahmoud. Okay. Next year's other election, you are still crying over 2023. Your tears, your tear duct, just make sure you pray that, never, because it will never run dry. You will cry. Somebody insulted me today on Twitter. I said something. I said, you are really playing your role in the script. Your own role. What's your name? Kene, your role in this drama is to cry, and you will cry. You'll be sad. You will hate everybody, but okay, it's your role in the drama. You will cry. You will still win in 2027, by the way. I mean, I don't hide it. I support President Tinubu. I'm not an APC person, but I don't even say anything wrong with the party, to be honest. But that man, Tinubu, that is going to win by the grace of God. I mean, I'm not God, so that's what I'm saying, by the grace of God. Your own role is to cry, and you will cry, and that's okay. When you finish, you dry your tears. I mean, in the script, you're supposed to dry your tears at some point. In the script. But looking at you, because you guys don't want to learn. Someone says on Olagunju, Mr. Olagunju, good to see you on YouTube. He says, I don't want them to become president or they can become anything. I mean, play the game now. I've said it before. I don't mind anybody becoming president in Nigeria. It's everybody has a right. That's the thing. Everybody has that right. Every ethnicity can make. We've had. Let me tell you guys, we've actually had more minorities rule this country. Say your platform I stumbled upon by accident, along my commercial accident in law, as shown as a pure ethnic. That's your problem. See, what Kenya is doing is what was done to Awo. Awo was talking about his ethnicity. He wasn't even cursing people out. They said it was a tribalist. Kenya is just doing what his fathers did, calling me a tribalist. But guess what? That's your business. You can cry. You were born to cry. Keep crying. Where was I? I was saying something sensible before this clown disturbed me. Cake, thank you for the gift. Thank you. Cry. I mean, that's your job. Just cry. Just be sad. Because I can't be begging you. I remember what I was reading. I was reading something from YouTube. Someone says, Olagunju says, I don't want them to be president. I don't mind anybody being president, to be honest. But anybody, and I said that if you look at Nigeria's history, we've had more minorities than major ethnic groups in this country becoming president. We've had Gwari, we've had Angas. I mean, with all due respect, we've had Ijo. Ijo is also one of the minorities that have been in this house. We've had them. We've had there's plenty like that. Absalom Abubakar from Niger State, Abi. Some say South and some say Nupe. But the point is, we've had a lot of minorities. So I think minorities also have rights because it's the country. All of us is our country now. It's our country. Yoruba person has the same right that an Ibibio man has. I don't have more rights in Nigeria than an Efik man. It's the clown who thinks that he has more right than an Efik man that is always shouting, why am I not the president? You cannot be president that way. Which way I'm saying this? God is God. God knows tomorrow. and the day after. But if you go by what your fathers and you have done in the last 60 years, it doesn't look like you're going to produce another president in the next 60 years. You are acting the exact same way, demanding when you should be collaborating, blackmailing when you should be looking for a way to organize yourselves. And like I said, nobody in this place is going to come and announce you're a tribalist. That's your business. In my heart, I don't hate you. Every sane person knows I don't hate anybody. You have to be insane to think I hate you. I don't hate you. I think you are blessed by God. I think you are made in His image. I want you to do well. I want your ethnic group to succeed. I tell you that you are just like every other group, but you are not better. You hate hearing that, but you will hear it for the rest of your lives. You are not better than anyone. And that supremacy nonsense that your fathers have taught you is what got them in trouble starting in the 1940s. Are you not listening? Anybody that tells you the truth is a tribalist, but your parents will not tell you the truth, but they are the good ones. You're a very wise man. Thank you very much for listening. On Tuesday, that's tomorrow, we'll be here at 4 p.m. if time West African time. We're going to have a fantastic session. There's something I'm going to play. I'll keep it in the cooler until tomorrow. Right, then on Wednesday, we're going to continue with the series, The Lagos Press War of 1940. So far we've covered from 1937. Actually, we started in 1800s, if you remember. But at least we're stopping 1945 into 48. So next time, we'll continue from 45, 48, and then we'll move forward. By the way, maybe we'll start in 44. I want to read some documents of what Igbo elders actually planned in 1944. Let me say something as I bring people up. If you're an Igbo person here, I love you. Your elders hated you. Because what they did was to plant a seed for you. And now you're eating the fruit. You hate everybody that are eating the fruit that your fathers, those trees your fathers planted. I don't do this because of any hate. It's just that you were not opportune to be raised by those who will tell you the truth. Okay? And I think it's important to say it with love. But if you want to do basbos, we'll call Thai currency for you. We're laughing, we're. All right, we'll bring people up now. Thank you very much for listening. Please, you are coming up. It's past 10. It's past 8. I wanted to leave at 8 o'clock. So we're going to keep your submission to 2 minutes each. We're going to make it very fast. We'll play the anthem and we'll call it a day. If you join us for the first time, thank you for being here. We have these sessions every weekday, Monday to Friday, 4 p.m. if you're at time West African time. So we'll be here tomorrow. Please join us as early as possible. Kenneth says every creed in Nigeria voted PO for his integrity, and you have the audacity to undermine all of them. Let me tell you what you should have written. You should have written, if you were thinking straight, every creed in Nigeria voted PO for whatever reason. For some people, it's integrity. For some people, it's because it's Igbo. In fact, for most people, it's because it's Igbo. That's why I got 97% in some of the states in the Southeast, 83% in some, 93% in some. It's because it's Igbo. But everybody voted him, but it will not happen again. Why? You cursed all of us out. Even those of us that voted for you, you still insulted us, say we are Yoruba. What you did to the Fulani, you are doing to us. That 6 million that you got, it has. You have to go to your family members to give him the 6 million. Maybe you now have to clone yourselves. Select money. We did it because people wanted to give him a chance. Some people were angry with Nigeria. Young people were angry about NSAS. People had issues with Buhari. All those things were on the ground, and it just came, and he took advantage of it. And which is okay, he's a politician after all, but it will not happen again. Why? You guys spent the last 3 years cursing everybody out. So go and create the remaining 6 million. How many of you are even voting? You're going to have to clone yourselves, though. Someone says now it's crystal clear. Yeah. I can see clearly now. The rain is. Please, once you get up, please mute yourselves so that we don't have interference. Please, we are keeping it to 2 minutes. Please mute, please mute, please mute. If you sent a request, please be ready to mute. Please be ready to mute. The next stop is
The next stop is Dover Street.
Thank you very much. Kenneth says, teach young Nigerians to be tolerant and stop spreading. No, I'm not going to teach young Nigerians to be tolerant of people who want to take over their space. Don't be tolerant of people like that. Know them and protect your space. That's what a sensible person would do. Not to say, come and take over. You go and be tolerant where you're from. And start with the Fulani. God bless you. The same clowns who burnt down National Open University in Imo State because they said they're going to give it to IDPs are the ones telling me about tolerance. Are you guys thinking? You say there's no federal presence. The federal presence is that you burnt it down because you heard that they're going to bring IDPs, not Fulani herdsmen, or IDPs, internally displaced persons. You burnt down the structure because of people that are bringing to your space. Not 10 years ago, 20,000 years ago. This last year, Abi Ojo not Julina. You are the one that will not teach Nigeria to be tolerant. You are dumb. Literally. You like blackmailing and gaslighting people. Tolerance go. I don't mind you being here. That's the point. I'm not saying I'm not tolerating you. I'm just saying you are not the ones that will tell me what to do with you. Tolerate you for what? Say teach them to be just go. May God be with you. Let me not tell you what. You will cause while you not come and be teaching people things that you cannot do in your family house. Rather. Anyway, let's start with SHC Sao. Please, let's start with you. Please keep it to 2 minutes. Again, I apologize I can't stay for too long, but let's try and make it work. Good evening, SHC. I think it's unavailable. Let's go to Yoruba Justice. Yoruba Justice. Not available. Ayon Baba.
Bro. Yeah, I'm
available. Sorry, I'm Baba. Please,
Hello?
sorry. I apologize. Let's have Yoruba. Yes, please go on. Yoruba Justice. Yes, please go on.
Yeah, I just congratulate you for your hard work in exposing these animalistic, criminal-minded people. We have a big problem. They are not going to change. I think they are naturally born like that, born to be evil and to be criminal-minded. Jesus. You should stop apologizing to them. I'm just waiting till.
Can anybody hear me?
Yeah.
Please hold on.
I hear you. Please allow him to state his.
No. I don't allow that kind of thing on this stage. Please. You can make your point. You can say what you want to say, but you don't have to go that route. All right. When you start saying animalistic, they are code necessary. Let's not do that. Please. Go on. Okay, I think it's unavailable. I don't know. I don't do that here. That's the point. I don't like people just fighting. It's not necessary. You can make your point. It's not necessary, to be honest. Yoruba Justice, is that the only thing you want to say? Go on now. Yoruba Justice, are you there?
It might be too strong. Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me now?
Yes, please.
Yeah,
yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I can hear you, but can you hear me? Can you hear me? I can hear you.
We are hearing you.
All right. What we Nigeria have to realize is that these people have been undermining our progress, our development, deliberately since independence. You can imagine if you don't have these people in Nigeria, where we Yoruba would be today. You see, not only they are undermining us economically, politically, they are even trying to assassinate us through their sales of drugs. We should not be treating these people lightly. Yeah, I don't know. I'm a security personnel. I'm a security instructor. I train military, soldiers, police, anybody. This is what I do. We are dealing with people who do not wish us well, and they are hell-bent into undermining our progress. So we cannot be playing with these people. The biggest mistake our fathers made in the after the Biafra war, they should have just wiped these people out. Simple as ABC. You cannot allow your enemy, forgive them and let them come back to be stronger again. So this is my submission for now. I beg you. Thank you for letting me speak. Thank you very much. Me, I don't have mercy for them. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Oh boy, people are angry. By the way, someone in the comment section said, boy, was repeating what I said. I told you you're an animal. I mean, if you think you're an animal, then so be it. But I thought you were a human being. Anyway, let's go to the next person. Ayon Baba.
Thank you very much, Professor Busui. Even though you are not yet a professor, I'm sure you qualify to be one. I've enjoyed every bit.
We will get there.
I've enjoyed every bit of today's discussion, and I love it. It's very educative, and I want us to share it to our youth, be Yorubas. We have missed it a long time ago, and our fathers missed it when they subjected our sage, Chief Obafemi Awolowo, my own personal idol, to all those excruciating experiences. We sent him to jail by ourselves. We called witnesses against him ourselves, and our own judge sentenced him to jail under our own government, a government that he formed. We Yorubas, we need to gather our senses together, and we need to educate our youth to all these historical events so that they do not commit the same error when it comes to the time of our youth. That's why I've been commenting since that our youth must be invited to come and watch this. I tell my kids across the globe, watch Busui Oris. Listen to him. This is our history, how we jettison our progress. Awolowo was the most progressive person in the history of Nigeria. He introduced the best program ever, the 1955 Universal Basic Compulsory Education, free. And the Northerners jettisoned it, and see where they are today. It was the Igbos that benefited from this, and that's why they have their voice today. If not for us, they wouldn't have had this voice. See, people that we helped are now attacking us. You understand what I mean? But I don't blame them. It's us that I blame, because we refuse to solidify ourselves into a union, into a very strong, virile unit entity where we can pursue our goal. That's what we should be thinking about now. Everybody to just come and infiltrate us, be it Fulani headsmen, be it Igbo terrorists, criminals, producing fake drinks in our land to kill us, to destroy our kidneys, and the rest of it. So we just must come and unite. See, Yorubas, we are always fighting ourselves. See this collapsing of a thing and the rest of us. We just must unite. And our youth must be prepared to come together. Yes, to fortify our future. Thank you so much. That's just
Thank you, sir, for that. Thank you for that submission. And that laughing thing, I'm just trying not to get into it today, but it is well. So go to NBA. Good evening, NBA. Like I said, hello, sir. Good to see you. Yes.
keeps me awake at night is how to deal with the Yoruba colleagues, family members, friends that we have. Thankfully, there are not too many who make it a point of duty to accuse us first of being tribalists just because we want to vote APC or Tinubu. They actually, before the Igbos accuse you of being tribalist, they will accuse you that you must be tribalist because you want to vote Tinubu. And I'm thinking to myself, certainly, the Hausas who voted for Tinubu are not tribalists. The other ethnic minority who voted for him, because he didn't win with only Yoruba votes. In fact, he barely scraped through in some Yoruba states. They were not tribalists. Why is it me that I must be tribalist just because I am voting Tinubu? Can't it be that I voted for Tinubu just because I lived in Lagos State and I saw his programs, I saw the way he had his eyes on the ball on most things that you need a government for. I see his competence, even as a politician. Why must they be the first to reduce this to tribalism? So I still don't know. I can worry about the Igbos later. What I want to worry about are the Yorubas and the ones who vote for them and who cannot even just say, I'm voting for Peter Obi because I like him. A lot of them seem to have this, I don't know whether I can call it a messianic image, that they are going to save a poor Peter Obi or poor Igbos, and they want to prove that they are not tribalists. That's why they are voting outside their ethnic group. It's not about that. This is something that, like I said, it keeps me awake at night. How people cannot process that out of 3 possible candidates that we had, one was clearly better. So if you have any suggestions on how to deal, because I mean, I appreciate a lot your incisive reasoning, and you've had time to think about this, how to deal with the Yoruba people who are forced to accuse the other Yoruba people of being tribalists just because they have chosen a candidate. That would help me personally. The Igbos I can handle. There's no problem without those.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that question. So I'm going to mute you so I can answer. Okay, thank you. What you do with Igbo Yoruba people that are doing that, you teach them. The truth of the matter is that most of such Yoruba people are very ignorant, and then some of them are willfully ignorant. So for the most part, we don't know our history. Again, let me say this: there's nothing wrong with a Yoruba person supporting an Igbo candidate. But there's everything wrong with that Yoruba person to tell another Yoruba person that they are bigots for supporting a Yoruba candidate. That's actually like grand stupidity. You should be able to vote anybody you want. For instance, President Tinubu lost in Lagos. He also lost in Osun State, right? Meanwhile, you are the ones who are tribalists too. But Peter Obi's region, every state, he got 80-90% because, of course, he's competent. Competence that we cannot see, but you see, it happens like that. Here's the point. For the most part, most Yoruba people do not know history. We don't know what has happened. The other part also is that some of us are willfully ignorant. In other words, regardless of the history, you just want to please a group. And that's because you think only through the lens of pity. That you now call, what's that word? Equity. But in actual fact, it's pity. And you see, human beings, particularly Nigerians, we like the underdogs. We like the underdog story. Oh, they've not given them any chance, and somehow they just became something. Nobody expected Peter Obi, but he became the winner. I want to be part of that story. Without understanding, you've never asked the question, what exactly is the plan? And you can't get anything coherent apart from go and verify, and then China went to China, and then consumption to production. I can't vote for that kind of person. I didn't the last time. I will never. Not even because of his ethnicity. You can't even, if you put him on a scale with Tinubu, it's an insult to President Tinubu. It's an insult. There's nothing to even compare. But I think that Yoruba people will do that, to be honest. Sometimes they are trying, there are many reasons. Number one, ignorance. Number two, pandering. Some people are 50-year-olds, but they still act like they have peer pressure on them. Number 3 is being contrarian. There are some of us who just want to go against the grain. It's not because it's right or wrong. You just want to be seen as different, even when what you are doing is stupid. You just want to be seen as different. But there are not as many as those who are ignorant. I think that the contrarians, you can't do anything about those ones. The ones who are willfully ignorant, you can't do anything about those ones. But you see the real ignorant ones who are being pushed based on peer pressure, those ones I think we can reach. Let me say this. I'm not saying, and I want to quickly say this, I'm not saying that if I say an Igbo person I want to do something, don't hate them. That's not the point. The point is that you cannot automatically prefer an Igbo person over a Yoruba person and then call the Yoruba people tribalist because they don't prefer who you prefer, and you're a Yoruba person as well. You are the people that they will easily bring together to form Yoruba Federal Union. Can you think of that possibility that Azikiwe will work against Egbe Omodudu and Yoruba land while he's leading an Igbo group, but he will work with some Yoruba people to create something called Yoruba Federal Union because those are the people that he liked to have their own union in Yoruba land. And some clowns will come here and tell me, let's talk about tolerance. As a Yoruba person, here's the point, and this is what I rather focus on. As a Yoruba person, what's paramount to you? It's self-preservation. It's not multi-ethnicity, it's not fairness to all, it's self-preservation. Once you have that on lockdown, right? Once you have it on lock, it becomes easy for you to now work within that. So for instance, if you know that it's about this group first, because this is the only land they have, the other groups have their own land, this is the only one I have, and I want to make it work for my people. It's about my people. Even if I allow someone from outside to do anything within my space, it's going to have to bend to that structure that I've already created, which is, it has to be for my people. It's not that you hate others, it's that you love yourself enough to protect your interests, because all this, we are liberal. The people you are being liberal to, they have a home to go to. This is your own home. We saw what happened in December. Some people went, everybody traveled home. Some people, that's their home. That's their home. So you can't do this thing of let's just open and say, oh, we are liberal. Being liberal doesn't mean that you should stop protecting what's yours. And I think we should have a session on, because I know that some people, I don't know where they came from, and where I know, said, oh, Awo did something, Awo also did something. Awo's goal was clear. It was first about his people, right? And so when he helped everybody. But you see, Bible says something. I think I should quote a scripture here. It says, do good to everyone, especially those of the household of faith. He's not saying hate everybody or be bad towards everybody, but he's saying that as a person that has sense, this is the group that you belong to. These ones, especially these ones, do good to them. Not that you are good outside, Odaranta or Daranle, you are good to everybody but your own group. That doesn't make sense. Especially if your group is actually the correct group. Tinubu is the correct candidate. I said it. People that are crying tears, I will do something next time. I saw Ayodeji did it. Once you talk nonsense, I just put a bucket there. You be crying the bucket of tears. God will bless you and ensure your tear ducts, keep getting refreshed. And you'll be crying. It's the incoming president by the grace of God. All things been equal. May God help us and help him. And the reason I want him there is because I see the policies that he's pushing out there. They are structural in nature. It's not about highfalutin, just fluffy consumption to production. It's structural. You see it. Well, you may not see it physically, but you have to see that thing. Then you now see the product of those things, which is why we bought rice for 40,000 naira in 2025, but we bought it for over 90,000 in 2024. Which is why inflation rates crashed. And things are going to get better by the grace of God.
Can I talk now, please?
No. I'm done. I have to go now, please. You've already spoken now. People are trying to come up. I can't allow them to come up.
I just want to add.
I'm sorry. I really have to run. People are waiting for me. Folks in the comment section trying to come up. I apologize. I can't bring anybody up anymore because it's I'm way past the time. I was supposed to leave here at 8 o'clock. It's 8:32, but I apologize. We're going to continue this on Tuesday. We'll be at 4 p.m. if your time was African time. Please join us and let's build Yoruba land together. Love to everybody, no malice towards any group in Nigeria, but love your people. Love your people. Let's use our number 6. Thank you very much. Before we go, we're going to listen to our anthems, the Nigerian anthem and the Yoruba anthem. If you know the songs, please sing along. If you don't, please learn the lyrics and we will have a great time. So please, again, Wednesday, we're going to continue the series. Tomorrow, we're going to listen to a fantastic recording. You see the title tomorrow, and we're going to have a great time together. Also, we're going to end the recording on Ekpepupo, so we have some time for people to speak. Thank you very much for your understanding. All right, let's have the Nigerian anthem, and then we'll have Yoruba anthem.
Nigeria, we hail thee, our own dear native land. Though tribe and tongue may differ, in brotherhood we stand. Nigerians all are proud to serve our sovereign motherland. Our flag shall be a symbol that truth and justice reign. In peace all battle honored, and this we count as gain. To hand unto our children a banner without name. Oh, God of all creation, grant this our one request. Help us to build a Nigeria may be blessed. Nigeria may be Iṣẹ́ wa fúnlẹ̀ wá, fún ilẹ̀-èdè wa. Tàgbéga, tàgbéga, tàgbéga fáyé rí. Ìgbàgbọ́ wa ni pé láti bẹ̀rù làbọ̀ bọ̀. Ká ṣiṣẹ́, ká ṣiṣẹ́, ká jọlá. Ìṣọ̀kan àtòmìnira ni ẹ jẹ́ ká máa lépa. Tẹ̀síwájú fọ̀pọ̀ ire àtòhun tó dára. Ọmọ ògbàlódé bọ́ sípò ẹ̀tọ́ rẹ̀. Ìwọ ni
àwa ni mọ́lẹ̀ òdúláwọ̀ ẹ̀wọ̀ ni wọ́kùn lágbára Ọlọ́run Yorùbá ní bàjẹ́ Nigeria no ní bàjẹ́. I saw some things on YouTube. I think I should quickly mention it. Your mind says, may the Lord be with you and your family. I love your works, Prof. We are with you always. Thank you very much, Your Might. Mr. Lagunju said, Prof, please let your lecture on the first coup in Nigeria on Thursday, 15th January for the celebration of the 60th year anniversary of the coup. So because of what, and this is actually quite interesting. So normally we don't come on camera on Thursday, but this Thursday we're going to make an exception. 15th January coup 60th anniversary. So we are going to have a session on the coup, on the first coup. We're going to talk about how it was planned, or maybe something I've not talked about before, how it was executed, how people were executed, Rafshade Day, Ademule Gun, Esela Kintola, Okotiebo, Abubakar Tafawa Balewa, Madubelo, all this, how they were alived. We're going to talk about them. Agama, Pam, Kher Mohammed, there's one more person, Mimalari. We're going to talk about all this on Thursday. So thank you very much for bringing that up, Mr. Lagunju, on YouTube. So we're going to have a session to mark the 60th anniversary of the first coup of the first coup of 1966. We'll do that on Thursday, but we'll be here tomorrow. And then on Wednesday, we're going to continue with the series we just started. And then on Thursday, we're going to talk about what happened on January 15. We'll see what goes on Friday, okay? But thank you very much for being part of today's session. And hopefully, going forward, we'll be ending the session around this time so that we can get to other things, as per, domestic stuff. So thank you very much for being here. I'll see you tomorrow, 4 p.m. Ife time, West African time. Do have a lovely evening. See you tomorrow. Hodaro. Bye, everyone. By the way, I want to thank everybody. I should do this. Thank you for the likes, for the gifts, for the comments, for everything, whether you're on TikTok, on Facebook, on YouTube, X, on Twitch. Thank you for reposting. Thank you for power tapping. We got to 132.4k likes. I didn't have to tell us. Thank you. Let me clap for everybody before we go, because this is important. All right. So thank you for liking, thank you for sharing, thank you for the gifts, every single gift. Thank you for the everything. Thank you, and may God bless you, may God keep you, may God make this year a blessed year for you. In your life, you will not experience loss. There will be nothing missing, there will be nothing broken. May God bless you, and may God prosper you in all that you do, fulfilling His will for you in 2026. Have a lovely